Per Governor Baker's order suspending certain provisions of the meeting law, members of the public can view the meeting as it will be rebroadcast on the local cable access channel. The school committee reserves the right to implement additional remote participation procedures and will notify the public of these procedures as soon as practical. We are going to call our meeting to order today. Today is Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. The meeting is being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast. Please silence your cell phones for the duration of the meeting. And we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to begin with the approval of minutes, payroll, and warrants. Beginning with the approval of the school committee minutes of September 8th, 2020. May I request a motion of approval? So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Approval of the executive minutes of September 8th, 2020. May I request a motion of approval? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Finally, approval of payroll and warrants. May I request a motion, please?
Make a motion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is old business. We're going to begin with policy updates. This is a second reading and vote of the following policy. Do you want to take us through that, Dr. Bailey?
Sure, I would also invite Ms. Floyd or Ms. Combs to feel free to interject. But the first one, harassment policy, ACAB. The second one, policy on COVID-related issues, EBC-S. Remote learning, IHBHE. And remote learning addendum, IHBHE/E. Those are all second readings tonight, and they require a vote as the policy subcommittee has voted to move those forward to the full committee for discussion. So if anybody from the policy subcommittee, but I think we should take one at a time when we do the vote, but I just wanted to let you know those that are listed that I just went through, they're all slated to be voted on, second reading and a vote tonight.
I think the subcommittee, we agreed on all of these as they were written, so I don't see any issues in my opinion.
Great.
So we go through each one and vote. We need roll call votes on these? Yes, okay. All right, so we'll begin with the harassment policy, ACAB. May I request a motion for approval, please?
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, we need a roll call vote.
Mrs. Gomes?
Yes.
Mr. Sumner?
Yes.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
Mrs. Downey?
Yes. Okay. Policy on COVID-related issues, EBC-S. May I request a motion, please? Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move into our roll call vote.
Mrs. Gomes?
Yes.
Mr. Sumner?
Yes.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Downey?
Yes. Okay, remote learning, IHBHE. If I can request a motion, please. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? discussion? Seeing none?
Mrs. Jones? Yes. Mr. Sumner?
Yes.
Mr. Test?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
And Mrs. Dowd?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, finally, one more here, we have remote learning addendum, AHPHE-E. Requesting a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none?
Mrs. Jones? Yes. Mr. Sumner?
Yes.
Mr. Test?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
And Mrs. Dowd?
Yes. Okay. And moving into a discussion on the immunization students, JLCB. Subcommittee recommended holding on this second reading and vote to the December meeting. Do you want to make any comments on that, Sarah or Ron?
I can speak for just myself. I know there is some legislation going on in the state level, so I feel we should hold off until our last meeting of the year in order to discuss this policy.
Ron?
I agree with that, yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, but any questions?
I just want to be transparent, the school department, the district is still moving forward with their annual clinics for staff and families. You know, I just wanted to make it known.
Okay. And then finally, the face coverings policy.
Excuse me,
Oh, sorry.
we'll do that.
Oh, okay. All right. So I may request a motion to hold this item to our December meeting for the second reading and vote. So moved. All right. All those in favor are reading roll call, so I'm sorry.
Mrs. Jones? Yes. Mr. Sumner?
Yes.
Mr. Test?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
And Mrs. Dowd?
Yes. All right, finally, face coverings, ECFA. Again, policy subcommittee here could not come to an agreement on this policy. So this evening we have it on the agenda for discussion only. And so I'll hand it over to our policy subcommittee members, Ron and Sarah, to give us an update on where we're at, please.
Well, Sarah, I guess, actually, this policy proposed by you is not that far out from the original policy. I think it's closer than what we started with, so maybe we can talk about why we proposed the changes to the original policy.
So as you can see, everybody does have committee members have a copy of the highlighted yellow areas. So those are the changes or additions that I created. It says a face covering that covers the nose and mouth must be worn by all individuals in school buildings, on school grounds. I added in when integrating classes in an indoor area and on school transportation, even when distancing is observed. I removed the exemption from the policy, our students from grade 1 below, because all our students are required to wear that from grade 2 to 8th grade. In addition to that, if you look down below, it says additionally, face masks or face coverings will not be required when appropriate social distancing. And I added 6-foot distance is enforced. And I added in, it says during mask breaks, and I added in classrooms at least every hour. I did not add in a specific time. That is up to the administration of what they want to do for that. While eating or drinking in the classroom, and I put, again, I added it in the classroom and other designated areas with individual classes. And then the next one is during physical education classes, I added in indoors and outdoors. So you see there the changes there. And so the reasoning behind these additions and subtractions is basically because I feel that we should be more strict when we mix classes. I know the mask breaks now, what we were talking about and what the administration has is mask breaks are outside and not in classrooms, meaning that there will be several hundred children putting on their hats and gloves during the winter time, and I'm just using that as an example, moving through the hallways that hundreds of kids have gone through throughout the day, and that concerns me. I feel that our kids should stay in their own little pods, and that way if one person is infected, that we know that they've been around these particular people. However, if they're transferring 6+ times a day in the hallways, moving around for mask breaks, which are required, that would not be beneficial to tracing or just keeping the touch surfaces and all of that clean. In addition to that, I also put while eating and drinking in the classroom, I feel like it's important for both teachers and students to be able to hydrate responsibly. I'll call it responsibly, where they can lift up their masks and take a sip of water and put it back down. I understand that the protocol now is that they have to leave the area, whether it's outside or in the hallway. And again, the transferring in the hallways, I believe that we should not be doing that. I feel for the safety of the children and for the staff that doing something responsibly in the room, as long as they are 6 feet apart, is the way to go. In addition to that, the time constraints of whether you're going outside for mask breaks or for drinks of water, that is going to be time consuming, and I am just educated, yes, that to get 12 kids outside depending on where you are in the building is going to take probably 15 minutes or so to make that all happen, and then they'll have to come back into the room and wash their hands, which then we are now affecting the time on learning. So if these children are taking a break every hour or every couple hours, that's at least possibly, and again, I'm not exact, a half an hour lost on learning, then they could just quickly take off their masks and take a little bit break or drink the water. In addition to that, when I mentioned while eating and drinking in the classroom or other designated areas with individual classes, I'm bringing up the eating in the cafeteria. Again, in my opinion, having the custodians clean and sanitize the desks. There's multiple of them, there's 50+. I don't think that they can effectively, and it's nothing on them at all, but to sanitize and let the disinfectant take its course. Usually it takes 3 to 5 minutes, and then wiping it down when, again, logistically, if the transfer between each lunch shift is, let's say, 5 minutes, that can't be enough time for everything to be properly disinfected, again, in my opinion. The chemicals that are being used to clean, which we have to do to clean up the desk, because there'll be a multiple 3 to 4 children sharing one particular desk in the cafeteria. I feel that if it's not properly cleaned, it could potentially hurt children if they're not dried properly. Again, these are just things I'm thinking as a parent. If my son does go back to school, which hopefully will be in January, these are the things that I'm thinking about. The third thing that concerns me with the reason why I put this in the policy is the tracing and exposure. So let's say, for an example, a student that has COVID, and then now we have to figure out, according to our COVID guidelines, who to remove from the school. So now we have the children that are around that person in the school and in their classroom, possibly the teacher. And then now, since they've been transferred to the cafeteria, there are the other potentially 3 other children that share that desk. So now, are those 3 children that share that desk that day or that week or whatever the case may be, do they now have to quarantine? And now, if those 3 or 4 children are in their classrooms, the kids are on the students in that classroom, do they have to be quarantined? That seems like that would be the proper quarantine protocol for that. So again, if students are eating in their classrooms, they are still in the same pod. There's not the risk of transmitting cross-classroom, I'll say. Again, in my opinion. In addition to that, with the, I know, the schedules for making this all work and having all of the, I'm guessing, I think it was about 5 classrooms at a time, or 4 or 5 classrooms of grade level, would be having lunch and then another grade level comes in, they would have to work, and I'm just thinking about this logistically, that if one teacher is running late or is early, that there is a potential for bottlenecking in any of the areas of this cafeteria or the cafeteria in the elementary school. And it would be no fault of anyone, but these are the things that I can see happening. And again, we're concerned about cross-examination, tracing, making sure that children are kept in the same area so that the germs stay in one location. So that again is a concern. And if they ate in their classroom, that would not be a concern at all. Because again, the same 12 children or 13 children would all be together. Again, and the other thing is the ventilation. There are windows in every classroom, almost. I might be wrong on a couple of them. But those windows would be kept open during these times to make sure that the rooms were properly ventilated when the children had their masks on. So that is that part of it. And one more thing, the gym areas and the cafeteria areas. Right now, and I might be wrong about this, but with all the desks there, the children now lose the indoor spaces to run around and be able to maybe socialize at a distance because of all the tables. So if we had the children eat in their classrooms, then they would have all of this space whenever the teacher wanted to have them come out and run around during inclement weather, which is again one of my concerns because we're coming up on winter weather. So because of these concerns that I've just mentioned, I suggested these face covering, this revision of the face covering policy. And again, it's not to make things more difficult, because I do not want to do that. Our original plan that was presented to the school committee did have the kids eating in the classroom, and then that changed in September. Because again, the reason for us choosing the hybrid and choosing the 6 feet was, with all intentions back in August, was to have the children be able to take off their face masks and at least eat lunch. Again, face coverings are to be used any other time, because again, our goal isn't to remove it's not to stop the virus completely, because that's impossible. It is to reduce the risk. And I believe this way would be the way to do it. I also believe that if we do have individuals, again, that do have COVID, that it would be easier to contain it, and that would keep our schools open longer, which is our ultimate goal, is to make sure that we have in-person learning. And again, if we have people transferring every hour on the hour in both schools, it is going to be very difficult to contain and quarantine the individuals, and we're going to end up shutting down. And again, that is my concern. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. And Ron, I'd like to.
Well, I just have a clarifying question. So, and maybe when I said this policy as proposed is maybe not as far out from the original as maybe my misinterpretation, because, so you're suggesting what you would like to see is the kids that eat and drink in the classroom. The way that I read the policy right now, it's written, it doesn't necessarily say that, right? It says, well, eating and drinking in the classroom and other designated areas within the classes.
And like individual classes, I mean like on their own, so off their private. Like individual classes, I mean like Miss Sarah's class, Miss Becky's class, individual classes, not all of first grade, not all of second grade.
So I appreciate that clarification. I just, from my perspective, I think it's actually, to me, it's a debate that is beyond the policy, right? It's because it could be the original policy and it says you have to wear face masks while eating and drinking. We are going to eat and drink, to me, is about the implication and how we can implement the policy. So I would just like to open it up for the rest of the debate to that their views on it. Because I think it's beyond what the space match policy says, it's about how we're going to implement policy. So is this, I'll just speak to it, but are we getting away from policy if we're talking about, I'll say, daily protocols and meetings and things, because that might be outside of our purview.
So school committee is not allowed to speak on operations. We're not allowed to do that. We are allowed to have our concerns known, and the only way to do that is through policy. So yes, we cannot do day-to-day, we cannot do optional. The only way to direct the superintendent and her team is through the way the policies are written.
Would it be helpful, Paul, for you to talk about why we are doing what we're doing? Why you have proposed that the kids are going to eat in the cafeteria, they're going to keep their snack breaks in the cafeteria? Could you talk through that a little bit? Sure.
So thank you. First of all, we started our hybrid model fully this week. And I want to say, so far so good. I'm so pleased and happy with what I'm seeing. And that being said, I've been able to observe the children actually implementing and the teachers implementing what we have currently in place. But the decisions that we have in our reopening plan, as well as student handbooks that we voted on at the school committee, those were not made in isolation. We have many partners who we speak to on a regular, consistent basis. We have a school physician, and as you know, we're in your packet how she feels about this. We have the local board of health, Chief Gallagher, our school nurse. We partnered with parents, with teachers, and again, we've had to adapt as we get more information. As you know, with this virus, very little was known in March, and we continuously learn as we go on. The goal here is to keep our students and our adults in the building safe, bottom line. And I will tell you, there is no perfect plan. The hybrid plan, there's some difficult decisions that we've had to make. Originally, we thought eating in the classroom would be great. However, as we learned about the airborne virus, we knew that DESE was recommended and they strongly recommended that whenever these masks come off or a break, that the goal was to take them outside or to a larger area whenever possible. So we've been taking children outside, unless it's inclement weather, we'll take them to a large space such as the cafeteria or the gym. But they work that out with their building principals. So then we thought, it doesn't make sense to have them take the masks off in the classroom when they're only 6 feet apart. We cannot separate them more than 6 feet because our classrooms are maxed out. We have roughly, on average, about 12 students in our classrooms right now at a 6-foot distance. So the only time that they really go to another space during the day right now is really, as I can imagine, twice. One, if they're doing phys ed and they're going outside, or if they're going to lunch or on a mass break. That's the time that they get up, they're able to go in. The buildings have done different things based on the space. I can tell you that in here, at the Floyd Middle School, they have every other row that is utilized. They sit according to their pod, they have assigned seats according to their classroom. It's not a random seating. They are assigned those seats. Children also have the opportunity to eat outside as long as they're socially distanced. So we have the courtyard, and it's managed. Our adults are able to, because this is such a large space in both buildings, they're able to monitor it on the perimeter. And then what happens is the custodial staff, they disinfect in between the lunches. Now, at Floyd Middle School, it's a little bit easier because they sit every other row. So if you have a row here, and grade 5 and 6 is here, that next row is left empty for that one lunch shift, and then they continue to fill in every other row, so those desks never get touched, the ones that are empty. It's a little different at the elementary school. We We have 47 seats in the cafeteria, all at least 8 feet apart, at least. And we have 53 in the gymnasium. And again, they are all spread out at least 8 feet. And again, the staff and the adults are monitoring the children. We quickly realized in working with the staff that we were not going to be able to cover, first of all, even if we thought it was safe, we were not going to be able to properly supervise the children in every single classroom because teachers need their lunch break. So somebody, an adult, would have to cover in every single classroom, and we don't have the manpower for that. We have one-to-one parents that have to be assigned to their child. We have early childhood parents that need to be with the younger students. We don't have the staff to be able to do that. But that wasn't really the ultimate reason. The ultimate reason in conversation with our partners was that this is an airborne virus, and to keep people safe, people did not feel comfortable taking their masks off in the classroom because they're only distancing at 6 feet. And it might be a very cautious approach in Acushnet, but I think we should be cautious at this point. There's so much about this virus that we do not know. Hundreds of kids are not going outside at the same time. First of all, there's only half the kids in at one time. Cohort A and Cohort B, they have their days. So the buildings are very quiet. You'll see a classroom quietly going outside in the courtyard perhaps, or another location. They all have separate locations assigned to them. And that's the reason, but I do want to just stress again that this was an inclusive process, and it's been going on since last March, and we will continue to adapt as we learn more information. Is the cafeteria an absolutely perfect situation? No. The perfect situation, to be honest with you, if we wanted to keep everyone absolutely safe, is when it's lunchtime, hand them a bag of lunch, and they go home for the day. That's safe, and they're not in the classroom, and they're not in the cafeteria. That's not what we're recommending. We are recommending to try to get our kids back in school and have some sense of normalcy. In the 2 days that I've witnessed it, I can tell you that our kids are happy. I feel like they're as safe as can be. I know the CDC just came out today, I believe it was, with some more information about this airborne virus. But even if we did say, when the school committee did agree to move it to the classroom, I don't know how on earth we would cover that with staff, how the children would be monitored. Like, that's a big issue. I also have an issue about messaging. We've messaged to families who have sent their children back to us knowing the protocols that we've agreed to have in place, and a lot of families have expressed that they feel good about it, and they're happy. I'm not sure that the community would feel the same way. I respect your opinion. Everyone has a difference of opinion. And I respect that, and I respect whatever the committee decides ultimately. But again, I just want to be clear that this decision was not made in isolation. It was made based on data, based on trainings all summer with doctors, our local physician, our local board of health, the fire chief in the town. And I have to do a shout out to the town. The town has been extremely supportive to our school district right now. Anything we need, they're coming in weekly to offer antibody testing. And it's a peace of mind for our staff. So the district is proposing right now, especially where we just started, to leave things as they are. And as we move forward, if things need to be changed, we change them. But I would have concerns because I'm not sure how we would cover that. And I'm also not sure how safe that is for children to take their masks off in the classroom that's a smaller room than this particular area. And if you'd like, I'm more than happy to take pictures of what it looks like so that you can visually see what I see. I know if it were my children, my own children, I would be comfortable putting them in that situation. I always try to look at it like that, would I put my own child in that situation? And the answer is absolutely yes. But if I feel differently at any point in time, then we have to sit down again and reassess. Do you have any specific questions? Was that helpful?
Thank you, Dr. Miller. That was helpful for me, but I want to allow the other members.
I'll just give my perspective as the other member of the subcommittee and certainly want to give the other committee members a chance to weigh in. I just personally prefer the broader policy because of the flexibility. I think we're dealing with unprecedented times. I think we're dealing with guidance that changes daily, weekly, and I worry that if we get so specific on some of these things in the policy that we're boxing ourselves into a corner a little bit. That being said, I'm also putting the trust, and I think all of us as parents and residents, and putting the trust in the administration, right, that they're going to be flexible and adapt, and if something isn't working, that we're going to raise it as a concern, and we're going to rethink what we're doing. But I just think the policy at a broader level gives us that flexibility, and worry about us getting boxed into whatever that implementation is.
Mr. Tubbs or
Have we surveyed the subcommittee and administration, have we surveyed other districts to see what their current policy is?
Yeah, we did survey the entire state of Massachusetts. 56 districts responded, and the majority of districts, and I did share this data with the subcommittee during a subcommittee meeting, and the majority of districts, if anything, had a very similar situation where they made the policy more stringent. For example, similar to Acushnet, no bandanas, no gators, because the research is showing right now they're not sure how effective those are. So many districts around the state have sort of added that to the policy, but that's what we got back.
that answer your question? So with being more specific to where students are eating,
There was no note of adding where students were eating. I know some districts are doing the take-home lunches. I know that in some schools, they have children sitting at desks, similar to what we do, the individual desks, and they have the children actually wipe their table down before the next group comes in. We're, I'm going to be honest, we're going above and beyond with our custodial crew right now, and it's been an all-hands-on-deck approach, and it's only day 2, so we know we're going to get better at this, but we've had to make an adjustment at the elementary school because 10 minutes in between that shift was just not enough time. Like, we were going around drying. We don't want anyone to sit in a spot that's wet. We want it to be right. So we currently adjusted the schedule again for 15 minutes in between, and we're going to see how that goes.
I have a question. So, Paula, can you walk us through if a potential student has contracted the disease, how are you going to trace and handle that based on the policies that you have here, knowing that now they're sharing the desks with other students?
Right, so that we know exactly where every child sits because they have assigned seats. I immediately contact the Department of Education because we have to report back if there's a confirmed positive case. I report it to the town. So I work with the local board of health and the fire chief and the town administrator, and we talk about, and also our school nurse, Mrs. Monty. We talk about next steps, and it's a team effort, but we have a policy in place that's been reviewed at the committee where we start to look at who's had close contact with that child with the mask off for 10, 15 minutes. And honestly, we're going to play it safe. So we are going to notify families if we have a situation where somebody potentially was exposed. We want families to know immediately that their child has been exposed. And like I'm telling people, the great thing, the silver lining in this is if kids have to quarantine, they're still attending school because they have access remotely. So they're not missing school, they're not missing their education. We're able to do uninterrupted continuous learning, and we're getting better at it every day. So it's a lot of conversation, it's a lot of talking to the teachers, and the teachers have to be very aware and vigilant about where children are. As I walk around and see, I'm always looking to see how are children social distancing, how are they doing with this? It's only day 2, so far so good. I think children naturally have a tendency to want to congregate and go close to each other. But that is something that we stressed during our orientation with the children, that in order for them to keep their friends safe and themselves and their families, they have to follow the 3 things: the hand washing, the social distancing, and the wearing of the masks. We've stressed that over and over, and I want to put a shout out to families. I think families have done a terrific job of preparing their children to come back to school, because even our babies, our 3 and 4-year-olds, are wearing these masks all day, no problems. It seemed as though we're getting that support from home, and I just really want to thank the families, because it's been super helpful, and the idea is, I've always said this, it takes a village, now more than ever, and we live and work in such a great community that we are all working together to do the very best. And everybody, including you, Mrs. Gomes, everybody has what's best for the kids and the safety, and I respect that.
On the, as far as the seating, so there's assigned seating, so that the kids are always sitting in the same seats in here. Does that also include the mask breaks during inclement weather?
I can find out, I believe that I can find out, because the way I understand, I just want to double check, and I don't want to misspeak. The teachers have signed up for specific times that they have mask breaks in inclement weather. I know that at the elementary school there was like a seating chart, so I want to say yes, but I want to double check. I think that would be wise in inclement weather, that they have the same spots. They stay in their pod, similar to how they're doing lunch right now. Like I said, none of this is ideal, none of it. But it's the best we have come up with that satisfies everybody to keep everybody safe.
Does the, so during inclement weather, the mask rates might be different than when it's nice out like today, for example. And so how would that interrupt synchronous learning, that type of schedule? So that would be disruptive to that, I would imagine, correct?
Well, I think teachers are amazing. Teachers are amazing, and they'll say to the kids at home, hey guys, I want you to try these next 3 examples. We're going to go out and say a quick math break. We'll be back with you. Again, not ideal, but it's to keep everyone safe.
Well, I'm just going to say that I think that my expectation of what families are doing to bend over backwards to make this happen, it's not parents. I mean, it would be lovely if we could have parents like sitting behind the kids every day, but that's not happening. So these are grandparents, neighbors, people at daycares managing this, and they've got kind of a schedule on what they have to manage, and then all of a sudden it gets, twisted because a rain cloud comes through a cushion. So, and then again, like how do we even manage, that amount of kids coming through using these same spaces for mask breaks, which I believe are the only times that they can sip water unless they set them out in the hall or something like that. And then also run, I don't know how many lunch shifts, maybe 4 lunch shifts. So I would just say that those types of issues obviously are a problem for me specifically, but I think if I could just comment, to me, this was back when we voted on the hybrid model, the expectation was that the whole reasoning behind the 6 feet in the classroom was so that the kids would be able to do those things, so that we wouldn't have to mix cohorts. And so in other words, bring everybody together in one setting, and now it seems like we're doing that. It's like, to me, that's the most unsafe thing we could possibly do. I think the best thing that we can do is make sure that the kids are wearing masks, and that's, that's DESE guidelines, right? So, I mean, all of the DESE guidelines, it says 6 feet of physical distancing required, except for mask breaks, eating and drinking. So DESE says that very clearly. You can be at 6 feet. The CDC specifically says that to have children eat meals outdoors or in classrooms while maintaining social distance of at least 6 feet apart as much as possible instead of in a communal dining hall cafeteria. So the CDC specifically says, please eat in a classroom instead of bringing the kids into a dining hall. This is, if you want to look this up, this is, again, directly from the CDC website. It also says in communal dining halls and cafeterias, if they will be used, ensure that the children remain at least 6 feet apart, and especially in food service lines and at tables while eating. And it says specifically, like, clean and disinfect tables and chairs between each use. And I just find that to be an impossible task. There's no way that that's happening, not a chance.
Sorry, I have to stop you right there. It is happening. I have Mrs. Flynn here. She supervises the custodians. I want to give those custodians credit.
I'd love to give them credit too, but there's no way that that's happening effectively, not a chance. So when you've got a food shift, a lunch shift with 80 to 90 kids in it at a time, with a 5-minute interchange, even a 15-minute interchange, it's not enough time. And these, like, for the chemicals to work correctly, stop me if I'm wrong, but they shouldn't be puddling and just wiping down so the kid's not sitting in a wet seat. They should be allowed to air dry and do the work that they're supposed to do. If I'm wrong on that, please let me know, but that's my understanding. And in order to do that effectively, like, I think that's just the worst thing that we could do, is like the whole process of eating is hand to mouth on the surface. And like that, I mean, I open my mouth. I mean, I'm a mess eater, so like we all do it inherently. There's going to be droplets that come from our mouths and land onto the tables. And then I'm going to leave this table, and another kid comes in 5 minutes later. And then we're going to do it again. And then we're going to do it again. And that's possibly after a morning where who knows we're sitting at that table as well for a mass break. And so to me, this is what we're doing now is I feel like it's so different from what was presented and voted on originally for the hybrid opening model. And then somewhere along the line it changed, and it appears as though it changed in direct contradiction to the information from the CDC and DESE. So, and by the way, the American Association of Pediatrics is the same thing. So that's kind of my view on it, and it seems incredibly impractical, and at some point we've got to be thinking about how far behind these kids are. They're so far behind, and the time that we're losing on learning for these kids because of this policy is insane. I mean, we're limited to 2 days for most grades in person as it is. With 100, what are we down? 155 days in school. That's 2 days a week. That's like, I think, 12 weeks total that these kids are going to get in person if we continue with this hybrid model through the whole year. I can't stress how critical it is. At some point, we've got to start talking about how critical it is that these kids get an appropriate amount of time on learning. This policy is just, it's killing the time on learning, in my opinion. And by the way, doing it and creating so much more complexity and a much less safe environment for our kids because of it. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. I want to allow Mr. Sumner an opportunity, or do you have any comments?
No, I'm curious to, I mean, we benefit to level 4 district grades as far as being in
They don't do levels anymore?
or red zone, sorry,
Yes,
Oh, you're right.
red zone,
For COVID.
yes.
Okay.
So what is their policy?
I know they've been in the red for 4 weeks,
Do
but
you know
they
what
have
their
different
lunch
schedules.
policy is?
Do I know what their lunch policy
Are
is?
the kids eating in the classrooms or are they in?
I don't think so, I think kids, but I can find out. I can definitely find out. I would imagine they would have a similar issue with staffing with that in the classrooms.
I mean, my sense is I understand the safety concerns being expressed. I think what I'm hearing though is we're trying to take a number of different factors here, both safety and operational details, right? About lunch breaks and coverage and the human capacity that we have in the school to make things work. And so I think what Dr. Bailey has tried to do is try to create a policy that not only allows the multiple stakeholders in this building to feel safe, but that can also be implemented with the human beings we have. And so I don't think there's any perfect approach to this. We're only 2 days in, and so we don't even know yet if what we're doing is going to work. And I think my mindset is that I agree with Ron that how we have the policy written now allows us that flexibility to continue to check in with our school leadership, with our teachers to say, what's working, what can we improve upon, what can we change, instead of boxing ourselves in. That's
And again,
my
I don't think there's any great solution, right, in all of this. And I think you can make a case to eat lunch in the classroom, and I think you can make a case to not do it. I also think, again, to some degree, we're using the policy to drive implementation here, because the policy is originally proposed, you could eat in the classroom or not, it doesn't specify that out of the way. So I think it's a balancing act. And I just want to add, I respect everything that John said, and I have the CDC guidance here too. And one of the concerns I have, and I think we probably are all experiencing this in our everyday life right now, it's like, what's the believe? Because there's so many messages that are coming, right? There were reports last week that the CDC has been pressured to minimize the risk of kids, of the impact of COVID on kids to downplay the risk of going back to school. I don't know if that's true or not, right? It was reported in reputable places. My point is it's very hard to know what you can and can't believe, right? And so I understand we are probably taking, well, some people might think we're not taking a cautious approach on not eating in the classroom. But for me, as it relates to the policy, I prefer the broad policy. And again, I'm putting my trust in this administration that if something isn't working, we're going to reassess how we're implementing whatever policies or procedures relative to the policy.
Reading Sarah.
Dr. Bailey, can you tell us, so again, our concerns, again, in my mind, the additions and subtractions that I've made on this draft policy. And I just want to make it clear to the committee that this policy was given as a draft from Mass. So it wasn't something that was created by Acushnet or other districts. It's just given from us from Mass because we've hired them for our policies. And then it's up to the individual towns to revise it as they see fit. But with that said, Dr. Bailey, can you tell me, this is a concern of mine, how many children, if one child gets COVID, and estimate this for me, could possibly have to be quarantined while having lunch in these, and this is a two-part question, how many kids could possibly be quarantined with having the lunches in the cafeterias? Okay.
I think it depends where they're sitting, so without knowing what row they're in, if they're on an end row, if you're in the middle
Let's say
somewhere.
they're on the end.
What is it?
Let's say they're on the end. And are we looking at like 12 kids? Like, because that's how we're doing it, right? The front and the back, the two sides.
They're 8 feet apart.
Okay.
So similar, do you see the single desks here? That's it's similar to this, right, except they're 8 feet apart, I'm not sure if it's measured out in this meeting. But all of the seats are assigned, so we would be able to go back and work with our nurse. Anybody that needs to be notified will be notified if we feel that they have potentially been exposed.
So would it be all 3 shifts or all 4 shifts of that person sitting at the desk? Would all of them be notified?
It would probably be the area, but I can double check. And again, what I would do personally is, first of all, I'm not a medical doctor. So what we do is we talk to the medical experts. So we have Dr. Travati is our school physician. We would consult with her. We would consult with Nurse Rose. We would consult with Chief Gallagher and the local Board of Health. So with everybody having a lens on what the right thing to do is, there's no one person making a decision. Everybody wants to do the right thing by the children and the staff there to be safe. So again, we will err on the side of caution because I, as a mom, would want to know if my child has potentially been exposed.
I'm sure it does.
So I would want to know that so that I can, do what I have to do. And I will say that we have great support with the fire chief in the town in terms of, testing. I know, I can say this confidently, that if I needed something, I'd pick up the phone and call. If a family needed something, I know that Chief Gallagher would be there to help us in terms of testing, if a family needed that support. Sometimes it's hard to make these appointments. We get the results quickly through the chief. The antibody testing is very quick, it's within 10 minutes, but he works with the lab and perhaps he can explain it better than I can, but within 24 to 48 hours, we're getting the results versus sometimes when you go out to your own family doctor, you're waiting much longer than that. So I feel like the Acushnet is in a very good place. I mean, no, it's not mandated that we take temperatures of kids every morning and adults, but we do. And it's a little bit more cautious, but I think it gives people a peace of mind when they come into work, or the first thing they do is go to the temperature kiosk. And we have, kids have come in with a temperature and sent immediately to the nurse, so that child doesn't go into class. So we have these procedures in place that we're doing. And I just want to point out, because I know this has been brought up a couple of times, on August 11th, during our meeting, a motion was made to approve the fall reopening plan as presented with the understanding that the situation is fluid and changes to the plan are likely. And it was voted unanimously. We know that in this time of dealing with a global pandemic, we're constantly going to have to readjust and adapt. We're doing it with our teachers right now. We're trying to figure things out. There is no playbook on what's happening right now. We are writing the book, right? So, I think people have to sit back a little bit and be graceful and kind. People are working their tail off. And when I tell you that those chairs and desks are getting cleaned, I saw the principal at APS doing it, I saw one of the lunch ladies doing it, and I saw a parent helping out the custodian so it could be done, so the children could come into the cafeteria in a way that was appropriate. Because everybody in this district wants to do the right thing and keep our kids safe and keep the adults safe so that we can, the goal is to stay in school so that we can have the time on learning and keep the kids learning with that uninterrupted time. And if I had my way, I would love all the kids to be here every single day if we had the space and if it was safe. It's just right now we don't. So this is the next best thing that we're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey. I want to remind everyone, we're not voting on this policy tonight. We put it on the agenda because clearly it's a sensitive issue. We wanted to have a discussion as a full committee. We don't have to make a decision on this tonight. There's a couple of questions I know Dr. Bailey written down to get some more information for the committee members. Make the last comment and
Thank you.
yeah.
So again, we're thinking about if a student does have COVID, and this is going to be a fluid situation, as I know, things are getting worse out there, more people are getting that flu disease. But it's important for the school committee, I think, to know. I mean, I do believe we had a policy that talked about what the protocol was, or no, it was in the hybrid plan that we had, the protocol. So with the going to the lunchrooms and having the multiple shifts, that many more children will have to quarantine or get tested because of how we're doing that. Now, you had mentioned that the teachers need to take their lunch breaks and there's not coverage. Now, with the COVID money that we have received, is it possible to get people in here to cover their shifts? Is that something that we could do?
I'm gonna be honest, we having trouble finding a custodian. We've had trouble finding building-based subs. We've raised our rates for substitute teachers to find the human capital needed. But that type of coverage, I don't see how we could do, and I'm just being honest, like that is a huge, that is a heavy lift that I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to do that.
Is it possible with the policies that we have in place and how fluid the situation is, and knowing that it's not common sense, but to me it's common sense, that the less interaction a student has with other students is the best way to not contract the disease. Now, with that said, is it possible for the teachers to eat lunch in their classrooms or out somewhere safe where kids would be able to eat in their classrooms as well? Is there something that we can do to make that happen?
So I would say that it's the law that the adults have to have an uninterrupted break, a duty-free break, and it's contractual. And I'll be honest, I don't want teachers to burn out. I mean, they are working so hard every day to give these kids the very best education. They need that break. They really need that break for lunch away. Like I said before, there is no perfect situation. Going to the cafeteria is not a perfect situation, but I will tell you also, we're thinking about the social emotional well-being of our children. Being stuck in a room for 6 hours in one room is also a concern. Children look forward to getting up, going to the lunchroom, even if they can't talk to everyone, they're socializing. If you could have seen what I saw today outside, and here, the kids who chose to watch a movie in their assigned seats were able to watch the movie. The other kids were socializing appropriately, social distance outside. We ordered tents that just came in. We ordered outdoor furniture. And there's been a lot of thought that has gone into what we've done. And I'm going to stress again, it's not perfect. So I would need some guidance on someone to help me figure out how we would possibly have the human capital to cover that. By law, they have to have a lunch break, and contractually.
I have a question. We have people already cover lunch, correct? So there is some coverage.
It's enough to cover a large area, so they're able to, like for this room, they're on the regular, it's not every room. Like there's several classrooms at one time.
Right, so I think just kind of the amount of kind of, I'll say, bending and twisting of the day to make current policy functional, I would imagine there would be probably less bending and twisting to find some sort of way to fill a nominal coverage gap. For example, a lot of like the classes connect. So could it be possible to have coverage person standing in the doorway between two classes and cover those two classes? Isn't that similar to, that sort of thing? And then, make lunch breaks based on, areas of the school versus necessarily trying to get the whole grade, eating at once, that sort of thing. But I don't know, I'm just thinking that type of manipulation of the school day would allow for, the teacher to continue to say, okay, we're going to take our 5-minute math break with, whatever, the whole classroom, half the classroom, and they can continue teaching through that. So that's just my view on it. And then to your point about like the kids being in the same space for 6 hours, yeah, that's a problem. But I think you would solve that problem, by the way, for the whole year by freeing up and giving them their gym back, right? So if you have the gym and the cafeteria back, then those are spaces that they could utilize for those types of things, even during inclement weather, which it really can, at this point. So I just think that it would be safer and perhaps a less arduous, accommodation to figure out a way to do that instead. And I also want to point out that the guidelines that I was referencing before, to your point, we voted on it August 18th, and we got to be fluid. This was from August 26th. And August 26th was the CDC stuff that I mentioned, and also DESE specifically says have students eat in classrooms instead of cafeterias. That was on August 26th. And it says if food and it says minimize mixing of cohorts. And it continues to reference the 6 feet. So I think we've established the 6 feet in the classrooms so that we can functionally do this and have this option, and I think it should be considered.
Any other comments? All right, thank you for this discussion. And from here, we're going to move into delegation. So I'd like to welcome comments at the podium. And then we're also taking comments. Last comment or not? No. Okay. So I would like to welcome anyone to the podium to make a comment right now for delegation.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Cavallo. I'm the ATA president. I'm also the kindergarten and first grade special ed teacher. And I actually was told that this policy was actually being spoken about last week by Dr. Bailey, which I thought was a little ironic because I actually had just sent out a staff survey asking about the health and safety protocols that were going on that we had originally agreed to in our MLA. That was both ratified by the union on September 2nd, and by your body on September 8th. First, I just want to actually address some of the questions that Mr. Tubbs had about inclement weather in the cafeteria when the kids are, taking mask breaks. Those are those seats. There is a seating chart, and teachers did have to sign up, so it wasn't just like a random thing for kids going in there. And as far as, when Dr. Bailey spoke about the fact that, if there was a Zoom, they could give the kids a couple of questions and then they could go out for a mask break, that's definitely not happening. Staff members were given the time to ask or to sign up for the times that they needed to sign up for inclement weather for mask breaks. So I'm sure a teacher looked at their schedule and wasn't going to sign up for a mask break. Ultimately, that was going to affect their Zoom time with their kids. So that definitely is not going to happen. I'm listening to you guys talk about teachers and how do people cover lunches. And I totally hear what you're saying because, the last couple of weeks or the last month of school has been very stressful and very hectic for me as a teacher as well as a union president to make sure that things are being adhered to make sure that my, staff is safe, students are safe, and that we're doing things that we should be doing to make sure, that nobody is contracting COVID. So, with that being said, when you're having all these staff cover these duties in all of these different classrooms, we don't have enough people. So not only do we not have enough people, even if we did, now you're going to expose all of these staff members to hundreds of kids a day. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, we can't even fill the subs, we can't fill paras. There's a couple of paras at the elementary school positions that have not been filled yet. We don't have an interventionist. I mean, we can't even find a principal. So how are we going to just randomly find all these people to come in and cover these lunch shifts so that kids can stay eating in their classroom? There's not 80 or 90 kids in a room. There's 45 kids in a room at a table that are 8 feet apart. They're not combined, it's the cohorts, it's their class, it's by grade level. And most grade levels are in each other's hallways, so it's not like random K group. I mean, I know there are a couple of classes now because we've added the classrooms that might be in a different hallway, but there's been a lot of thought and respect that has gone into all of this.
So I do, we are at 2 minutes, but I want to let you
Okay.
finish your comments, just kind of
Wrap it up, thanks, Jen. You know, I just want to let you know that when I did do the survey, 95 people responded to my survey, and 72 people felt that it was important to wear masks all the time. 86 felt that it was important for the students to wear masks all the time. 89 staff members felt it was important that you maintain 6 feet of social distancing in classrooms with masks. 85 staff members felt it was important that you maintain 8 feet of social distancing in classrooms without masks. And all or most of the members felt that it was important that we have access to sanitizer, open windows, PPE, testing, cleaning products, and availability to hand washing facilities and touchless fixtures. So I posed these 2 questions to them and asked if they would alter the Acushnet Public Schools face mask policy in any way. And 88% of the staff said that they would not. I also asked them if they would be comfortable working with students face-to-face with no masks, and 93% of them said they would not. And some of the responses that I got were, if we move to no mask wearing or relaxed mask wearing, I have to take a leave of absence. So far, so good, but I think as we head into the cold season, there may be more cause for concern and questions that come up. Thank you for advocating for us all. I would absolutely 100% not be comfortable working with students who aren't wearing masks. I'd also 100% be uncomfortable working in a classroom where students and staff are not wearing masks with a different teacher. Frankly, I don't feel particularly comfortable being in school with students as it is, especially with COVID. Numbers rising in masks. It goes on and on. So I guess my question is, or actually my statement is that as the ATA president, I also have an obligation to bargain and uphold the contract. And an MOA is negotiated and ratified by both parties in September, and I would just like to remind you that the MOA number 11 states that faculty and staff shall adhere to all health and safety protocols as established within the approved district reopening plan and applicable school committee policy. Please be advised that any health and safety is a mandatory subject of bargaining, and so the unilateral implementation of policies contrary to our agreed MOA is could amount to an unfair labor practice. So please cease and desist from any implementation of these policies that would violate our MOA.
thank you.
Thanks.
Can I make a comment? So, thank you, Lisa, for speaking. I just wanted to clarify, and I talked to the committee, based on that information that you just heard, I just want to clarify that in no way am I stating in my revision of a policy. And by the way, I think a lot of people are forgetting that they think that this policy is already in the works and already voted on. There was never a policy about mask wearing at all, ever. So this is something brand new, like I said, was given to us by MAS as a draft. So again, no policy has ever been placed in front of the school committee or voted on. With that said, I heard a lot of the comments about teachers being uncomfortable with interacting with students without masks, and I absolutely agree with that. There should never be a teacher interacting with a student. What I am presenting here is, and again, I was not in details, but I can completely be detailed, that the 5-minute breaks or 3 to 5 minute breaks in the classroom will help with the in-school learning, when they're not taking the big delays, which are silent, where maybe a child could read a book or color. So there would be no interaction with the teacher. The teacher would sit at, and I'm just playing this in my head, the teacher would sit at her desk or his desk, and the kids would do what they need to do and just take a quick break. Same thing with the drinks. Quickly take off the mask or lift it up, take a sip, put it back down. Again, I would never ever want a teacher to think that I am trying to say that no masks. that is not the case. And again, with the eating in the classrooms, again, that teacher maybe could be 10 feet away with the class, the way the classes are set, the pictures that I've seen and been in the classrooms, the teacher could be 10 feet away with a mask and maybe a shield that they feel comfortable with, and it's silent eating, and then the children, when they're done eating, put on their masks and they start talking, so they can socialize. Again, I don't want teachers out there to think that I'm not thinking of them. They are one of my top priorities. But the other thing as a school committee member is I'm very concerned about the children and mixing. That is a concern. Being out in those hallways multiple times a day is concerning to me, because I think that the less exposure that they have to potential germs is better. And then again, on the tracing, and if one person gets, the disease, do we have to have 50 people be tested? Or do we keep to that little pod in that classroom where that teacher has only been with those children? Is that a better way of doing that? And again, Dr. Bailey, I realize again that we have a personnel problem where, this cannot happen, but maybe with some creative speaking or working out with the ATA, maybe that is a potential. Again,
I want to allow, thank you, and I just want to allow delegation to continue so that we can make sure people who do want to make a comment get the fair time to do
Can I just
that.
respond to that? Or no? Because I already won.
Yes, you can make it brief. Quick response, and then again, I'm just making.
I just want to say we're so worried about, and we should be, not that we should not be, I don't need to sound like we shouldn't be so worried about this, but we're so concerned with all the kids being exposed to each other. What about when you're placing all of the staff members in 20 different classrooms? We just ran into this problem last week where I had to sit down with the elementary school principal because the parents actually were servicing the kids like 100 minutes a day. That's it. The rest of the time they were doing math breaks, they were doing lunch duty. It's like, I hear Mr. Tabbs when he says the kids are far behind. Yes, they are. So are we going to use our personnel to cover lunch shifts and to cover all of these duties, or are we going to actually use our staff to work with our kids and bring them up to where they need to be?
Question. And then are teachers allowed to take a mask break and drink water in the classroom?
We do not take mask breaks in the classroom.
Teachers aren't allowed to drink water in the classroom?
You can take a quick sip of water, but that's it.
But the students aren't allowed to.
If the teachers are alone and they have planning time in their classroom, they can take the masks off. That is the only time they're allowed to take the masks off. But I don't encourage drinking in front of kids if they're not allowed to drink. Right? The kids aren't allowed to drink. I think that's common sense. And I just want to stress, I am all about, we're dealing with two crises here, right? We're dealing with the health and safety, a global pandemic, and we're also dealing with the crisis of teaching and learning because our kids are behind. But I will say, we don't know enough about this virus and the impact it's going to have on a child 10 years from now with their respiratory system. So we're doing everything we can to keep everybody safe because we don't want to have an issue down the road. I want the kids to be here, to be educated. We're all lifelong learners. We have the rest of our life to learn, but we need a life to learn.
I have one more question. Again, I think I asked this before, but the seating at a mask break during inclement weather, the kids are sitting in exactly the same seat that they sit in at lunch.
They signed up. I'm not sure if the teachers signed up for the exact same seat, but they were given a seating chart with a new time to sign up for.
Okay.
So we'll write that down, Mr. Tabbs, and we'll try to get some more clarification. Okay? All right. Thank you, Lisa, and Chief Gallagher.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Dr. Bailey, and staff. My name is Kevin Gallagher, I'm the fire chief. And ultimately, when the history of this pandemic locally is written, I think what we're all going to be very proud of is the partnership that was forged during this crisis. And that is with town officials, elected boards, the superintendent and the administration of the school to get to that goal of a safe environment for the students, the staff, the teachers, so that life can, in the middle of a global pandemic, resemble something like we remember. And Joe Correa from the health department, I think when we look back in the rearview mirror, we'll see in the history books that we will all be proud of that partnership. And I thank you for the role that you're allowing me to play. I just wanted to define that role, if I may. If it ain't burning, I've got no fire. And I have been involved in this pandemic from the beginning. Because of the role of our public safety officials, my number one job is to protect the people that I serve with. And that means reducing the risk for the community. The less cases we have in town of Acushnet, the less risk our staff, our public safety officials are exposed to. And I follow that constantly. And I'm paid to follow that constantly. And from that, I've developed a rapport with other department heads who have included me for my opinion and my input. But I just want to make sure that your committee is aware that as a department head, I'm not usurping any of your authority. I have no role, nor should I, in where kids eat lunch or where they wear the masks. That's you. But we're keeping our fingers on daily, sometimes hourly, on this ever-changing world in which we live. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. We were chased by the tiger back in the spring, and that caught us all off guard. And then things started to level off. And I think our own personal conduct has started to level off, given just our fatigue with COVID. And there may have been some data that was provided that gave us that comfort level of leveling off. For the month of August, back in March, May, April, Joe, we had 40 cases per month, which was pretty significant. And then it dropped off considerably. In the month of August, we had 4 confirmed COVID cases in the town of Acushnet. For a total, as of Wednesday, of 123 confirmed cases. In the last 2 days, we've had 12. That's 10% of our total in the last 2 days. Last week, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts issues a report every Wednesday at 6 o'clock or so that gives the data for the community. They have different metrics that they use, and you've probably seen that there's a color-coded map to provide policymakers some direction with the data. And we were, prior to last week, we were in the no color. We were in the clear, meaning there was a very small number of cases per 100,000 population, and a positivity rate was below a certain level. And then last week, we jumped from clear over the green to the yellow, which is a moderate risk. We will be in the red tomorrow. Guaranteed. We've had 12 cases in the last 2 days. I'm forming a very strong friendship with Joe Correa. I'm getting tired of his texts that list the addresses of the folks in town that are testing positive, just this week alone. So we were, again, I think when history is written, we've been very proactive in this community because of the input of so many different stakeholders. And we've purchased the equipment, we've established the policies within town government, public safety, and the town buildings, and you for the school systems. But the challenge is very real, and we're here to tell you tonight it's probably not any more real than it is right now. We seem to be at the very beginning of a spike. What's driving that will consume too much time in answering to try to figure that out. If you drove down Middle Road this weekend, you saw many, many cars lined up to go to a tent for a party. Thanks. Thank you for that. I'm walking down one-way aisles at Market Basket, trying to do the right thing so that kids in the school can be safe. And we've got residents who are having huge parties. Thanks a lot. Your passionate about a policy over masks, which is the last thing that really you as a school committee thought you would be dealing with, because this crisis continues. And the only way that it's going to get any better is if people listen to the advice of the experts. Social distance, mask wear, sanitize your hands. Now I'm guilty. Back in March and April, my hands were stinging from the hand sanitizer. Let me ask you, you don't need to say it. How many times have you washed your hands? Probably a hell of a lot less than you did back in March, May, June. So we need, as leaders in the community and as adults, to redouble our efforts. Let me tell you what the town is doing. We're here every Wednesday. We are exceptionally happy to be providing this service of testing your teachers and your staff. It's on a voluntary basis. We would love for more of them to participate. But we're doing the antibody testing, which lets you know if your body has been exposed to COVID-19. We can't tell you where in the process your body is. If you test anything but negative, we're asking them to take the nasal swab test. That's a definitive yes or no. You have the COVID virus. We're doing town hall employees on a regular basis. We're going to be going to the council, to a presidential terrace to target that senior population that lives there. But Joe and I were late getting here today. We were with the Board of Selectmen, and they've authorized, and we're kind of putting together on the fly here, our first community-wide COVID testing scheduled for this Saturday. From beginning at 9 a.m. We'll go until the last person is tested. I have no idea. This might be the biggest mistake of my career. Because usually we like to go in with a plan. 9 o'clock, front parking lot between the two schools. We'll have going to borrow the tents that we just received. We'll have paramedics underneath them doing nasal swab tests, no cost to the public. That's how we're going to get ahead of this. We were chased by the tiger before, hoping we were able to grab the tail this time. And provide the testing so that people get the results and they can take the appropriate actions to try to slow the spread so that the kids can come to school in a normal environment. So all these different gears of town government are clicking along. But you should know as policy leaders that the numbers did dip during the summer. They are increasing and increasing pretty steeply. So where this goes, it's anybody's guess. We had an incident this week in a local business. The owners were proactive, and we believe that that's been contained. But for all their good efforts, we still have house fires. We'll probably have some this week. It's supposed to be nice weather. So we have a lot more to do as a community to self-police. You have a lot more to do as a committee to establish those policies that keep everyone safe. And we, as your friends in town government, have a lot more to do to make sure that we have policies in place in the system. So that's my 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chief.
I gotta go. Thank you. Thanks.
Team, committee members, Joe Korea, the health agent here in town. I won't take up a lot of your time. It's hard to come behind Chief Gallagher. He's just a great speaker. He tells you all like it is. But what I really want you to know is that we have, like Chief Gallagher said, come together in a way that I don't think I've ever seen, and I've worked in a few other communities that I've ever seen before. The staff, the entire staff, town halls, the fire departments, the police departments, the school, we all communicate on a regular basis, and we all try to work through this the best that we can. This is certainly unprecedented, and you guys have a really difficult time ahead of you, as we all do. The Board of Health, will support in any way that it can support you, any way that it needs to support you. We really just want to make sure everybody's safe, and whatever decisions you make, that right now it's really early. We just got started. That these decisions should be to really go out of your way to take the worst case scenarios, do the best things right at the moment, and see what happens over the course of the next month or two. I know we're concerned about the weather and the weather coming in. but still, it's still fall, and usually it's pretty good for the next couple of months, weather-wise, kids being outside. Just try to stay vigilant in whatever decisions you make, that we stay safe, because the uptick is definitely here, it's coming, it was expected, as Chief Gallagher alluded to. We had 12 in 2 days. We really want to make sure that, again, we're being as safe as we can, so we don't end up closing schools down or doing something to that effect. So whatever choices you make sure that they're the toughest ones, if you will. If it's wearing a mask more or whatever the case may be. But other than that, that's about it. There's no other support.
Thank you. Great. Any other comments? Yes?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I really wasn't expecting to get up here and speak this evening, but I just felt it was important, being one of the senior members of the administration here. I've had the opportunity to work with the Acushnet schools for well over 14 years. I was a resident in town 21 years before then. Father served on the finance committee, so I'm very well, even though I don't live in this town anymore, I have a deep, I care deeply for the town of Acushnet and what goes on here. They've already left, but I would like to start off by saying I can't think enough of Chief Gallagher and the health department. It has been absolutely amazing the opportunity that we've had in this town to work together with these officials. Obviously I live in Dartmouth, many of you know I'm the chair. I'm actually the chair of the Dartmouth School Committee. And I am extremely, extremely proud of the job that Dr. Bailey, this administration, and those teachers behind me have done in this district. For those of you who are not educators or may not be married to an educator, or fortunate enough to be married to a third grade educator, the anxiety that teachers and educators are feeling right now is truly overwhelming. And the fact that they're coming in with a smile on their face. They feel safe enough to be here, because we all know that if you're not safe enough to be here, if you didn't feel safe, you have that opportunity to leave. You have that opportunity to take the 12 weeks that was offered through the corona pandemic policy that they had. However, the work that has gone into prepping these buildings has paid dividends. I understand that everyone right now is focusing on the mask debate, and that's where we've been at right now, and I can appreciate that, and that's a decision that you folks will have to make, but ultimately, I think right now, I would hope and I would ask that the Christian School Committee look to Dr. Bailey, look to her administration for their leadership. She's the paid professional. I say this before, we're the politicians, you're the politicians in town. You look to the paid professionals to make the decisions that are in the best interest and safest for not only our students, but for also all the staff members in this, this school district. But once again, I want to thank you for your time. This has been not a very easy decision. I can appreciate it. However, I can tell you that I feel extremely comfortable coming into work every day with the protocols that have been put in place, with mask protocols, with hand sanitizing protocols, with the tens of thousands of dollars that have been spent on HVAC and air circulation in this district. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I appreciate your service, and I also appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. All right, we're going to move on to new business. Superintendent's report, Dr. Bailey. Okay, thank you. As you know, the committee did vote, approved a calendar as if we were in regular school every day with all of our children. So what we've done here is updated the calendar to reflect the hybrid model. And the biggest difference is in the regular calendar, we had several half days throughout.
we don't need those half days because every Wednesday we have a professional development day. So this calendar, once it's approved, if you approve it, we think it would be helpful for families because it actually reflects the hybrid model of where we're at right now. So if anybody has any questions about that calendar, I'd be more than happy to.
I just have one, it might not be calendar related, but considering about snow days, I know there's been discussion in other districts about not needing snow days, like moving to like a remote learning day, is that?
So that is something that the Commissioner of Education has to ultimately decide if he allows that.
Okay.
And he is leaning towards this year, perhaps allowing it, but we don't have the green light. And like he told the superintendents, he's not expecting snow in October, so we can wait. But I do anticipate that he will, and I say this, loosely because it's not official, that if we do have a snow day, there's a good possibility for this year only that it would count, we would do remote learning. The teachers would work remotely, the students would work remotely, but that is not in place. And when it does, if it becomes something, everybody will be notified, but there's no change right now in terms of calling.
And we would need to be one-to-one at that point too, in order to do that, correct?
Correct.
This calendar here, so my son is in Teca. He's doing the Teca until hopefully January. Do the Teca parents have to follow this calendar, or do we go with our own? Because they don't have they have a couple of holidays, that's it. They don't have a half day on that Wednesday in November or anything like that. So would you recommend the parents to follow this calendar or our?
So I would recommend that if the child is enrolled in Teca, that they follow the Teca calendar. They're still considered Acushnet students and we monitor them, but they should really follow the Teca calendar so that they don't get behind in whatever.
Can that be put in whatever emails is sent out to people, just so they're aware, so there's not any confusions?
Any other questions or comments on the calendar? Okay, so this will require a vote. So if I can request please a motion to approve the hybrid model district calendar for the 2021 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any Okay. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Sumner?
Yes.
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
And Mrs. County?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next up is my evaluation protocol and the goals for this school year. I just want to review the documents that I put into the packet. The first one is the superintendent and district administrator rubric. So that just includes all of the elements and the standards. All teachers have that as well. This one's for superintendents. There is a memo that reviews my 4 goals, and then it outlines my self-assessment, which I'm not going to read, but I think I will quickly review the 4 goals because it will allow me to do that, which I'll get to that in a minute. And then the last document is a copy of the electronic summative evaluation report. Now, school committees can decide, we've decided over the years, and I think we've refined it over the past couple of years. We used to do it by hand. Last year we did it via a Google document where each individual member fills out the evaluation and it goes to Mrs. Benavides. She compiles it into one report, one evaluation. So the one evaluation would be the evaluation, but everybody would have input into that. So it's done electronically, which makes it easier. We used to do it by hand, but last year, the feedback that I received from the committee was that it worked out well with the electronic submission. And then as far as my goals, I'm looking at the template that I gave you. Looks like this. So the first one is to promote ongoing student achievement by ensuring all Acushnet Public Schools students have equitable opportunities to engage in uninterrupted learning experiences. And you can see there's many strategies that go along with that I'll be doing throughout the year. And obviously, there's some resources. And then what I will do is, I will come back to the committee in January and review where we're at. Second goal is a leadership goal, professional practice goal. And that's a similar goal because I've been involved in the NSIP program since my first year as superintendent. So this will be my last year in the program. So to develop and implement lessons and activities from the new superintendent's induction program, year 3, and build my capacity as an effective leader within the Acushnet Public Schools. And you see that there's several strategies there that I have to do and attend. The third goal is to develop and implement resources that support thriving social and emotional learning experiences for all the students within the Acushnet Public Schools. And the fourth goal is to continue to provide a safe and healthy learning environment that prioritizes every Acushnet Public Schools community member during the global health pandemic. And I list strategies. And basically, you know, as we've said in the past, I like to be totally transparent. I don't like surprises. So, if at any time at all, if you have questions, concerns, you know how to reach me. Does anybody have any questions? And again, you'll see throughout the meetings, there'll be certain presentations. You'll be informed as the year goes on about a lot of these things. But I just want to point out that we are continuing with teaching and learning in the district, even during the global health pandemic. And I am so proud of the educators in this district who are truly taking a risk to learn a new way of doing business. And it is not easy, it's very stressful. And I give people a lot of credit for what they're doing. I appreciate the resiliency of our students. Just really impressed with the team overall. So we're continuing to work on the goals that we've started a few years back with our entry plan and the findings. So nothing has really changed. It's just going to look different because we have some children learning at home and some children in front of us. Does anybody have any questions about the process? All right, next I have, we have a personnel report. Since our last meeting, 3 new staff members have been hired. We had 1 resignation, and that's where we're at with that. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. Mr. Floyd asked last time if we were conducting exit interviews. Was there one conducted with a resignation or a change?
That particular person did not give notice, and we found out about it after the agenda was made from the last meeting. So this is not a recent one, but I know that last time we had talked about an exit interview, which we definitely be doing, but she did not give the district any.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Just for the committee, I did reach out to the chair following that last meeting. They just asked that we put that on the agenda for a future meeting when the time's right. I think we need to get through what we need to deal with now in terms of COVID, but I do think it's a topic that we should visit as a committee to talk about how we can track that stuff forward and what's appropriate, what level of discussion we can have even at personnel. But I think at the end of the day, you know, we need to be understanding why teachers are leaving, especially highly valued teachers, and that's how we can improve things, right? So,
Absolutely. I just want to make note that that resignation was not a Unit A teacher, so it was a little bit different. I just want to leave that note. You know, many times Classroom, not our contract, they're looking for positions that they can find to have that job security in that contract.
But when you, just for clarification, unit A, you mean classroom teachers? Is that what you mean by unit A? Just so to clarify for the public.
Yeah, I'm sorry, classroom teachers.
Right.
All right, thank you. And then next, Mrs. Sheridan was supposed to be with us. She's our nutrition director, and she was not able to be here tonight, so I know that she had asked Mrs. Flynn to recognize one of our employees. So if Shelley Mello is here, I would love for her to come up to the podium. Is she here tonight? I think it's, yeah. Come on up, we want to see you, come on. And I know Mrs. Flynn, you have some words that you'd like to say.
Okay, so in your packet, you have a letter that Dr. Bailey received from the School Nutrition Association of Massachusetts. And they're letting Dr. Bailey and the school committee know that they wanted to thank us for supporting Shelley Mello's decision to serve as a delegate elected in Chapter 5 of the Association's Executive Board. I know last year, before we closed down, Shelley came to Jean and me to ask if she could serve on this board. And I want to make it known that most of the delegates that are throughout the state of Massachusetts, based on where you are, we're in Delegate 5, I believe, correct, Shelley? Most of these delegates are already school nutrition directors. Shelley is our cook manager at the elementary school. So she just was very ambitious, and it showed her commitment and dedication and need and desire to further her school nutrition education and professionalism. So Dr. Bailey agreed, because it does require her attendance at certain, I think, 4 or 5 conferences and meetings a year. And I think basically, Shelley, you plan the professional development for the rest of the communities. I know we posted them here, some professional development that's required for our school nutrition professionals. Basically, they say they bring information, services, and continuing education to school nutrition and food service professionals in Massachusetts. So this letter here that we have that is just thanking us for allowing one of our employees to take the time to do this for the benefit of not only our district, but the benefit of other districts throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So Jean had put together some nice words that she wanted to say tonight, so I am stepping in for her. So Jean wanted us to know that Shelley Mello has completed the Certificate in Excellence in School Nutrition from the John C. Stalker Institute of Food and Nutrition at Framingham State University. Now there's a lot of courses that one has to take to attain this certificate, and Shelley has attained that. She's participating in that. Jean goes on to say that the goal of this highly acclaimed 5-course undergraduate program is to increase the knowledge and skills of directors and senior management in school nutrition programs, to meet the financial challenges of the self-supporting school nutrition program, to evaluate and implement the emerging trends in school nutrition, and to apply the changing nutrition standards to improve the school nutrition environment. What a great time to get on this board too, Shelley, the changing environment that we have. So what's especially notable that Jean wanted us to know is that most of Shelley's fellow class members in this John C. Stalker Certificate in Excellence are also current directors. So Shelley is really rare and unique in that most of her classmates are already serving nutrition directors. So she is preparing herself well on a path to prepare herself to lead a school sometime. She had to work extremely diligently on all of her courses and homework, and she achieved high grades in all of her classes. And Jean says we are very proud to have her with us, and we are. And we are very proud of Shelley and all of the work that she and her staff, she is one of her staff members here, are doing always, especially now as they too have to change how they do business. So kudos to you, Shelley. Thank you very much. And good luck in your appointment.
When that came through, I was not surprised when I saw that, because children love Miss Shelley, and she does a wonderful job, and she truly is so dedicated and committed to building her capacity. So Miss Shelley, thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you for your work. Congratulations.
So next up we have Boy Scouts. They are proposing an outdoor classroom project, which is quite exciting, especially in these times where we seem to be accessing the outdoor space. For me, this was very important, again, to include the school committee on something like this. Eventually, we'd like a vote of the committee on this project.
Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Cody, I'm 6th grade science teacher here, and I am our local scout master for our local Boy Scout troop. We're here to kind of not only outline what the boys are going to do for the school, but it's a little bit of a celebration for them. It's taken them about 10 years of their life to get to this point. Okay? So I want to introduce you to them. Boys, come up here, please.
And I must say, they've been so patient tonight.
So these two boys, Andrew Floyd and Tanner Cody, they're products of our school department, graduated from Ford. They're out calling out. Over the years, it's not working. So in order to get to this point in time, I guess I gotta stay here. In order to get to this point in time, they have to accomplish at least 21 of these merit badges. I can tell you that both of these boys have accomplished way more than that. You can see some of the topics here: first aid, citizenship, communication, they have to learn about cooking, personal fitness, emergency preparedness, environmental science, personal management, camping, family life. This is only a portion of it. These are the required ones that they had to do to get to this point. These are all the courses in that area. Both of these boys have been through the National Leadership Training, which is a Boy Scout national organization. They had to go away for a week to learn how to be leaders, to prepare themselves for this project that they're about to do. So some of the things that they have to do to become an Eagle Scout is they have to serve as leaders in the troop, right? In addition to everything else that they've done. Andrew is currently the leader of our troop. He's our senior patrol leader. Tanner was before him. They have, in the time that they've been in Boy Scouts, they've done over 50 hours of community service, mostly in our community. And they have to live the Scout Oath, which is basically to be a good person. And they have done that. Okay, so what's next for them? They're what we call life scouts now. Right? So they have to develop a plan, give leadership to others, and in a service project to help a local religious institution or any school or somebody in the community. They have chosen to do it for our school community. Okay? In the spring, when this all started to come about, we talked about outdoor classrooms. And Mrs. Sylvia had asked if the Boy Scouts could do something. And these boys were struggling with what they could do for their community. And it was a collaborative effort on their part. They put this together. They have two locations in mind. Okay. I'm going to give you to Andrew for a second. He's going to tell you about his classroom.
Okay, so for my classroom, what we were picturing was we're going to take off the grass and put gravel there. We're going to put a wooden board up against the wall. We're going to have a whiteboard that comes up and comes on. So we can bring a whiteboard in and out. And we're going to have wooden stumps as seats so we can move them around, distance, social distance, all that. And for the other part, we're going to have 6 pillars going up. And we're going to have sunshades on it to keep the sun off like children as they learn. It's mainly going to use this music area.
So if you notice the picture here on the left, that's right outside the door over here. Okay, so the door that we came in, that grassy section on the left is where Andrew is going to build his outdoor classroom. Okay. And the other one for Tanner is
there's gonna be stumps for the students to sit on, like, right? And it's just gonna be like an outdoor classroom. It's gonna have like a whiteboard and an archway with bricks that lead into it. It's right next to the parking lot, so it's gonna be it's gonna be close to the road, but it's gonna be quiet.
So that area, that picture on the left, you can see is if you're in the parking lot, the new parking lot, there's a little clearing in there, which we're gonna clear a little bit more to make it bigger. But we hope it looks similar to that. The exciting part of that part of the project is the wood archway and brick walkway, which will be seen from the parking lot. It will look good. And I think for Andrew's project, I mean, that's supposed to be specifically for music in the future. That's the kind of the school plan. I think it's going to be an exciting location for kids to go out and play their instruments or do chorus in an outdoor area where they can spray out. Any questions for us?
Well, this is really exciting, and thank you for your work. What is the time frame for your projects?
So I can go over that with you. So the boys just got approved yesterday from council. So they had to write a proposal. And then they had to meet with the building inspector. They had to meet with DPW. So they met with town officials. Then they had to submit a proposal to our Boy Scout council. Okay, so they just got approval yesterday. So once we get the approval, now they can go out and do some fundraising. So the three of us are going to go out this weekend. Tanner needs a lot of lumber for his project. Andrew needs lumber for his, so we're going to go to like Forgiven Lumber and see what we can get for donations. The town is offering a lot of materials already. They're going to provide the gravel for Andrew's classroom out here. They're going to provide the mulch for Tanner's in front. What else are they giving us? So we're looking for lumber. We need lumber, and we need the mesh that goes underneath so we don't have weed problems after. The town is also providing all the stumps, right? Because both areas are going to be surrounded with wooden stumps to be kind of a natural setting. So to answer your question, how long is it going to take? Realistically, we're looking somewhere around mid-November to be done. Okay, so they don't actually have to do all the work; they just have to organize it. So we have a lot of community involvement here. Okay, so the town
You need some labor, Mr. Tubbs is available.
I missed that. What?
If you need labor, I think Mr. Tubbs is available. Thank you.
Labor is not the issue. Money might be the issue, but
So if someone should want to contribute to your cause, whether that's materials or money, how do they find you?
You can.
They contact you.
Yeah, they can contact me. They can make a donation to the troop. So part of the process is if they end up collecting more, we'd rather have supplies than money. But if we got money, if they do happen to raise more money, that money has to go to the school department. So they're collecting for the school department right now. So I don't foresee us going over because of the donations from the town. But I mean, we're looking. I think when we sat down, both projects were around $1,100 a piece. But a lot of that stuff's been donated. A lot of those materials are donated. Right now, we're really looking for somebody donated bricks for the walkway. So I think right now we really just need lumber for whiteboards. That was another thing we were going to talk to the PTO about, purchasing some whiteboards for that locations, and then the sunscreens, things like that. So just reach out to me here at school, and I will. If anybody wants to make a donation to the project.
And what is your email, if you could just publicly state that so people can contact you?
Yeah, my scout email is joecote, JOECOTE 310 @gmail.com.
Okay, and lumber is needed.
Yeah, we need lumber.
Okay.
But I think realistically we're in good shape. I think once we get the materials, it won't take us long to do this because we have the resources in place to go, because we've been talking about it for so long. So we have just about everything in place. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, and I'd be asking the committee for some type of a vote of endorsement or support for this Boy Scout project, because this is something that will change the landscape, if you will, of our school campus. It's something that Mr. Cote has discussed with teachers and principals, so it's something that will be practical and useful. But that's what I would be looking for, is, you know, for the committee to formally say that they're in support of this. This is quite a big project.
Okay, great. So if I can request a motion of support, please, for the Boy Scout Outdoor Classroom project, proceed.
Make a motion.
One second. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Good luck. And thank you for your leadership.
So next we have technology update with Mr. Oliver. We know that technology has been a huge part of our reopening plan and the hybrid model. So he will be giving us an update of everything he needs with his department.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. Before I get started, I think it's really important to start off on a positive note by saying that I cannot thank and cannot compliment the teaching staff here at the school department enough. We have various levels of technology skill over the two schools here. We have some teachers that are way up here, we have some teachers that are a little old school and they don't want to embrace technology. However, they got thrown into it. They got to talk about getting thrown into the fire very quickly last March. And the willingness to try and put themselves out there, sometimes vulnerable. I really cannot say enough about the teachers that have stepped up to the plate and really had no other choice but to embrace technology. So I thank you for this opportunity. I'll try to be as brief as I can. I know we're running a little long as it is. So a lot has happened in 6 months. I think we'd start off a little bit of a light note here with social distancing. This is a little technology inside note here with sitting across the table. And it's true, things have changed in 6 months. So that being said, what did we do immediately following the COVID closure, the abrupt closure of the school department? Well, the weeks immediately following it, we had to come up with a plan. How are we going to educate our students? How are we going to get our faculty and our teachers involved with some type of education of these students? We know that from Commissioner Riley and from the Department of Education, that the idea was to, I believe the motto was to keep the learning alive at that point. I'm proud to say that since then, we have had a complete turnaround. I honestly believe we have a very good, robust model to date. But going back to March, what did we do? We quickly rounded up and distributed approximately 150 Chromebooks to those families that did not have any kind of device at home or expressed a need for some type of device at home. Now keep in mind, to some extent, which was a little challenging, is that a couple of years back, many of you may have remembered that we tried a one-to-one program here at the Floyd Middle School. We had a grant opportunity, and I think it was in grades 7 and 8, we were able to purchase Chromebooks one-to-one. And it worked out for the first year, pretty good, and then we ended up turning into a UPS ship center in which we received broken Chromebooks, we shipped them out, we offered insurance, and at that point the decision was made that we were going to go to a car model. We were going to go and we were going to put Chromebooks in cars, keep them in school. We did that, and then March came, and it just threw us into a complete, little bit, I don't want to say chaos, but it threw us for a little bit of a loop. So what we ended up doing was pulling apart these carts that we had just put Chromebooks in at the beginning of the year. We were able to get them out to about 150 Chromebooks to families, and also staff that needed a device. We provided technical support to those same families and staff. We were contacted by parents not knowing. Let's face it, up until March, not very many people knew what Zoom was. Zoom is now a household term. I think we all know it's probably going to be in the dictionary very shortly. Zoom, and now also Google Meet. So what do? We started providing professional development. I had shop set up in my basement office we were providing professional development to teaching staff on how to use Zoom, how to be comfortable with Zoom. And at the time, that was the main platform. We didn't even want to entertain anything else. We just wanted to focus on one platform. And that's what we did. In addition, if you remember, prior to that March, Acushnet did not have a YouTube channel. We had a Facebook page, but we had no YouTube channel. Dr. Bailey said, Chris, we need to come up with some kind of method, some kind of way to distribute video, distribute content out to our students. So researched it, put it together, and I'm proud to say that I think we have a pretty decent YouTube channel, Acushnet Schools Media, for those people at home that want to take a look at it. We just recently put together a wonderful grade 8, or I shouldn't say grade 8, Floyd Middle School tour with one of our former students, COVID closure with Colin R. That narrated it. And I gotta say, once again, giving props to staff, that the amount of teachers that actually submitted videos was incredible. We had videos from storytelling. I don't know if you had the opportunity to watch Mr. D's ESPN Sports Center that he would do weekly for PE. Continuing on, what are we going to do about school committee meetings? And it wasn't just school committee meetings, because we also oversee the town. What are we going to do with select board meetings? Well, the plan came up and we're able to, and believe it or not, it's actually much easier, much simpler to stream YouTube live through Zoom than it is through just a typical camera, or trying to do it in the library as we found out at the last meeting. But we put together a plan to get Zoom for our school committee members, for our select board members, pump it out live through YouTube Live. And overall, it was a very good success. What else did we do? We started planning. That's typically the time in which we start planning and coming to ideas of what we're going to do for our summer projects. I had the opportunity to present to the select board in Acushnet. I'm not sure if the finance committee was there as well. I was pleased to see that our select board, in addition to Mrs. Hebert, our town administrator, supported our upgrade for our Wi-Fi project here at the schools for both the middle school and the elementary school, in the tune of somewhere in the ballpark of $85,000, which was a CIP article for town meeting, and town meeting graciously approved that. So very pleased about that. One of the other things that many people may not realize is that the state actually started conducting, probably in early April, something called PEBT collections. 3 times a year, for those of you who don't know, we have to, every school district in the state of Massachusetts is required to submit 3 rounds of data to DESE. October 1st, March 1st, and end of the year data. Those data fields include approximately 52 fields of data for every single student in our school district, ranging from their attendance, their date of birth, their LASID, their SASID, and then we also, not only that, we also provide them with what's called EPIMS. EPIMS is our educator collection, in which we also submit somewhere in the ballpark of 15 fields in one collection for our educators, including their colleges, their certifications, what classes they're teaching, and then we also submit something called the SCS, our Student Course Schedule Collection, in which we're reporting every single class that every single student takes, and every single class that every teacher teaches, and we're also reporting our final grades to this Department of Education. What PEBT was, that was a joint project with DESE and with the Department of Transitional Assistance that allowed our free readers lunch status students, our economically disadvantaged students, to be able to, we had to upload their data. It actually took a while to get that data accurate into the exact way that the state wanted it. And what that did was, they worked with the Department of Transitional Assistance, and all of our economically disadvantaged families received a preloaded EBT card in the mail. Those were two transmissions, and we actually just completed a third transmission a couple of weeks ago of our economically disadvantaged students, in which the state was continuing with a third round, and it's my understanding that they'll be continuing that some more, and that's with government. I'm not sure if that's with government COVID funding, federal funding, but we're very pleased and happy to assist in that. In addition to the technology, I managed to work with, myself, Michelle Sylvia, the principal of the middle school. In addition to Acushnet cable access, we were able to put together, I think we did the kids did, I think everyone did a great job of our virtual 8th grade graduation. It's unfortunate that we couldn't have it in person, but having some of the speakers there and having the scrolling slideshow of the students' pitches. So that's something else that the technology department did. That being said, our summer, the work doesn't stop. Summer technology work, we're always looking to improve. As we know, everything revolves around technology. It's getting worse. I don't want to say it's getting worse, but it's getting more and more cumbersome. So just a couple of things. Keep in mind that it's myself, and I have a full year computer technician, and I also have a school year computer technician. In addition to a data registrar person that works underneath me. Some of the things we did, obviously Windows 7's end of life. We're continuing to upgrade our Windows 7 computers to Windows 10 because of the security patches ending, and continuing to upgrade that. Some of the other things collected, we updated the Chromebooks that we distributed following the COVID closure. So we distributed, remember, about 150 Chromebooks back in March. We're still actually working on collecting some of those back. We're optimistic that we're going to get just about all of them back, but we're continuing to work on that. But once we get it back, we got to go through, we got to sanitize them, we got to update them. Some of them did come back with broken screens. We're trying to take care of that. Just general maintenance. We also installed new PCs in locations that needed them. Obviously general maintenance, and just work orders throughout the summer as needed to be. Over the summer, we also made the decision with, the fact that there was such an unknown with COVID going on and what was going to happen in the fall. We decided to make the decision to go one-to-one with Chromebooks across the district. As of June 30th, 600 student Chromebooks were ordered. I think I brought this up at the last school committee meeting. To date, actually, I got another 50 in recently, so 250 have arrived. We have boxed them, prepped them for distribution. I'll talk a little bit more about the Chromebooks in a minute. In addition to all that, I developed, planned, procured, because it's obviously anything over $10,000, you have to go out for state bid, three bids. So procured an $85,000 Wi-Fi upgrade with HP Aruba networking. As you can see, there's two in here right now that covers both the cafeteria and the gymnasium. It's a great system. I'm really pleased with it. But the problem is, once again, everything else with COVID, there's a demand, and factory lines, assembly lines are, they're at running at 50% capacity. Although they're not running their third shift. So unfortunately, things get back on it. I was able to continuing to push my sales rep and one of my vendors. They were able to start the project mid-August. They literally hung the last access point Friday before the teachers came in. And we're continuing to tweak the system. However, I'm really pleased with it. We've had some mostly success. Obviously, some of the issues that we've had recently with the online learning and Chromebooks is that some of the Chromebooks that were given out to teachers were some of our older ones. I do have a shipment of 25 waiting to come in. Once again, they're back ordered. I'm optimistic that they'll be in soon. But yeah, lots of good things happening. One of the other things I might have mentioned is that we installed public Wi-Fi in the fields, in the playground area to increase internet access. What you're looking at over there, you really can't see it very good, but what you're looking at over there is the pump house that's between the fields over by Big Toy. That's a pole, and those are our public Wi-Fi access points that's pushing up public Wi-Fi to the fields, this field, that field over there, the Big Toy, the tennis court, so depending where you are, it's got a pretty good signal. In addition to that, we installed 2 new touch panels, for those of you that, and I'll show you that in a second. For those of you who are not familiar with touch panels, and think of them as a giant iPad, they're pretty neat. We put in 2 75-inch touch panel screens, both in the 7th and the 8th grade science lab. This is really going to be the new technology as our projectors. Right now, for the most part, all of our classrooms, I think most of you are all parents, you go into a classroom, you see just like that, you have a projector hanging from the ceiling. You know, believe it or not, technology changes, it's starting to be old technology. So as those fail and as money allows, 2 years ago, town meeting approved a $25,000 article to start replacing some of these devices, and that's where I had the money from to replace to install the 2 panels in the 7th and 8th grade classroom. But they're touch panels, they're a giant iPad, they're pretty neat. I'll show you those in a second. In addition, we have a wonderful, probably about 3 years ago now, we installed a brand new security camera system. We've been phasing in some of the old analog, phasing out some of the old analog cameras. Every year, if we have money left over, we'll swap out the old cameras, put in new digital cameras that allow for digital zoom, much more clarity, and they pay dividends, I can tell you that. One last thing, we ordered 60 web cameras to support our virtual learning. Those came in last week finally. We got them mostly installed in all the grades at the elementary school. We're starting to install them here now. The web cameras will also hook up, so there'll be 2 options. Teachers will have Chromebooks, in addition they'll have web cameras that are hooked up right to their desktop PCs. There's just so many cool things that you can do with technology. So right there, that is one of the new, they're called touch view panels. That's in, I believe, Mr. Saulnier's science lab there. And it's not only a TV, but it's also a PC built into it. So there's no wires. You can see there's only really one wire going down to it. There's no wires plugging into a computer. That's the TV, that's the computer. It's a Windows 7 operating system built right into it. So from what I can tell, the teachers are loving it, and that is, I'm hoping with the help, depending on what the budget looks like, I'm hoping to go back to town meeting to request some more money to continue our upgrades as our projectors fail. So domino effect. We're going to go with Chromebooks for every single student. Well, guess what? We don't have enough bandwidth. We really didn't have enough bandwidth to support this. So I made the decision we're going to increase our bandwidth really quickly. We have a dedicated fiber optic circuit that we run through Metro Comcast Metro Ethernet. We're updating that, almost tripling it from 300 megabytes to 1 gigabyte. This is dedicated bandwidth, unlike the cable that you have inside your houses and your neighborhoods that it's actually, Comcast will say, speeds up to, that's a little caveat, speeds up to 1 gig. That's because that bandwidth is shared with all the other households in your neighborhood off that same node. This is dedicated, it's actually a cable. It runs out of this building, down Middle Road, and interconnects up on Acushnet Avenue. Once again, domino effect. We upgrade our internet, now we've got to upgrade our firewall to handle the additional bandwidth and the additional throughput. Been working on upgrading our firewall. So as you can see, kind of see a pattern here as there is a domino effect as we increase our technology. The back end, which is not very glorious, no one sees it. Everyone's like, why are we spending X amount of money on say a $10,000 firewall, it's needed, it has to happen, it's not glorious, it sits in the back, no one really sees it. However, it protects the network from any kind of intrusions. Really quickly, technology is not just hardware. With Kerry Stoffel, our new CIA director coming on board, we began the process of integrating our SIS, our SIS stands for Student Information System, Aspen, with some of our new software platforms. I'll tell you this, that in a regular year without COVID going on, this is a lot of work to integrate systems, system integration. Matching data fields, pushing, it's creating jobs, it's time consuming. So what we're doing is we're configuring, ultimately we're configuring and running medically automated jobs. Some of these programs that we're working on for configuration include SAPS, Light Sail, Amplified Science. Process is still ongoing. Things are not perfect. We're hitting road bumps, I'm not gonna lie. We're pushing technology to a place it's never been before. I have this conversation weekly with my colleagues all over southeastern Massachusetts, from Barnstable all the way up to Avon and down to Seacon. We're pushing technology to somewhere it's never been in the K-12 education sector. We have, Google has been failing to some extent. Google Classroom has been down. We've been having issues with Google Meet. Some of our GoGuardian software, which is for our content filtering for when we take our Chromebooks off campus, that's been bogging down a little bit. Comcast had an outage. I don't know if I put that in an email to the committee, if it was just the administration. But Comcast had an outage out of Metro Boston a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the day school started for this area. So we're pushing our technology to places it's never been. And it's time consuming and it's a challenge, and it's a little worrisome that we're going to be able to sustain all of this. I'm hopeful, but we'll see. In addition, program changes to Aspen with attendance, data collections, I spoke a little bit about, and reporting to Technical students. Once again, just really quickly about TechUp, even though they're Technical students, even though they're attending virtual classes through TechUp, we're still responsible for reporting their attendance. We're still responsible for claiming those students in our SIMS reports to the state. So 3 times a year, October, March, and end of the year, they are expecting us to, they're still our kids, we still have to report them. We're reporting them in classes in TechUp. So there's different data fields, I won't get into it for you. However, just know that we have to report our TechUp students just like we would our regular students. Takes time. One of the other things we're looking at doing is, was brought up next door at the elementary school, we're looking at rolling out Aspen parent accounts for our elementary parents. We think it's important, mainly for being able to have electronic report cards. So this way, because here at the middle school, let's remember that the teachers at the middle school have online grade books. Parents are able to log in, and I think every 2 weeks the parents are able, I'm not sure what the policy is and what the contract states, but I want to believe it's every 2 or 3 weeks. Teachers at the middle school will upgrade their grade books with the latest test, quiz, homework there. That's not necessarily the case next door because we use standards-based report cards. We don't use standards-based report cards here, so there really is no online grade book. One of the nice features about having the parent portal at the elementary school is for distributing electronic report cards, pushing those out, pushing out other types of secure parent data that would be very helpful through Aspen. We have been asked by several teachers here at the middle school as well. The middle school parents have Aspen accounts. What about our students? Because I've had conversations with teachers here, and I want to sit down with Mrs. Sylvia, the principal. Let's look at shifting some of the responsibility to our students here at the middle school. Empower the students here to log into Aspen. Because some parents will give their students, their children, their own Aspen accounts anyway. So one of the things we're looking at is let's create Acushnet accounts for our students here at the middle school, so they're able to check their grades themselves and empower them to do that. Just one of the possibilities. That is something we're looking at for a little further down the road because we've got some other things we've got to prioritize. That being said, our current technology status. All FMS, all Floyd Middle School students have district-assigned Chromebooks. All Tech and Remote students have district-assigned Chromebooks. Loaner Chromebooks have been given to families in grades 3 and 4 with no device available at home. I just sent an email out recently, and I'll be sending out one, hopefully, a little late tonight or tomorrow. Our grade 2 families will be able to pick up an emergency loaner Chromebook. I was hoping Thursday, but I don't, it's kind of pushing it, so it probably will be Friday that we'll be able to provide. I was able to source, I think, about 2 dozen loaner Chromebooks. 2 dozen Samsung Chromebooks from a vendor, so we can get those out to our second grade families that need devices at home that don't have devices at home. We think it's really important. That's where I was saying I sourced a small shipment to provide notice to those in grade 2 families. So that being said, after that takes place, it's not ideal. We know this. Technology is backed up. It's backed up across the country. Great, but students in grades 2, 3, and 4 will have access to some type of device. So why was the decision made to distribute Chromebooks to all 4 middle school students? It's a good question. Original plan, we had enough Chromebooks to offer loaners to all of the ABS families that needed them right up front. It wasn't until mid-August that we learned that Tecker was not providing devices, because Tecker in the past would provide their own devices to students. So we scrambled and we ended up giving out about 100 Chromebooks, which otherwise would have gone to Acushnet Elementary School students to our Tecker families. Is it perfect? Nope. It was a decision though that had to be made and had to be made quickly. Shipment of remaining Chromebooks. I literally bug my salespeople every day. They're due to come in October. At that point, all AES students, I've been trying to communicate. I send out one-call emails probably every week to different grade levels. We are trying to communicate that to them. We want people to know, we want families to know that every student eventually will, at the elementary level, will have a Chromebook assigned to them. One of the other things, good news is that my jetpacks, my hotspots from Verizon government will be in, I believe tomorrow. I got a notification from them. We have approximately 5 families that I have confirmed with that they meet the criteria for some type of hotspot because they do not have internet access at home. And we're going to be providing internet access to those families that are in need of that. So everyone is on the same playing field. Continuing to support families and staff with technology needs. Technology department, we literally have responded to hundreds of emails and phone calls. It is unprecedented, if I can be honest with you. At this point in time, the technology, and this isn't unique to Acushnet. Technology department is understaffed. We could absolutely use more help. We are out straight. I have my people responding to emails at all hours of the night, on the weekends. I have reached out to families. I was on the phone with a parent crying. I'm trying to support them as best we can. There's only so many hours in a day. We have gone from, not having Chromebooks one-to-one to now this district, middle school, one-to-one. Tecker families, yes, Tecker has been a bear. I will acknowledge that up front. I don't think it's been spoken about too much. The bottom line, what I can say to Tecker is that there was little information provided to the districts across the state. This is not unique to Acushnet. I know the families, I completely appreciate it. The families at home are extremely frustrated with Tecker. I was unaware, and I can speak personally. I have a niece and nephew that attended Fairhaven Public Schools, one at Hastings, one at East Fairhaven. They chose Tecker because of what they thought it was. To find out later on, after you've signed up for it, that the 30, it's only 2 30-minute live lessons a day. And then just some of the, I worked with Mrs. Gomes on a number of occasions trying to get your son up and running, I believe, with Tech. It's, you know, it's through no fault of the Acushnet Public Schools, the problems that we have experienced with Tech. I don't think DESE was ready, or I don't think they supposedly vetted it out. I believe there were, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Bailey, I believe there were 3 different options for remote learning, and it seems like a lot of the districts. I know it was Techno, it was Ingenuity, and there was a third one, which I don't remember what it was.
Florida Virtual Academy.
What was it?
It was in Florida.
Okay, Florida Virtual Academy, which I think Fairhaven went with for their high school students, possibly. And those are the 3 vendors that they supposedly vetted out. And the decision was made, just like everything this summer. I'm not here to point fingers. I don't think anyone wants to point fingers at the decision that was made. But the bottom line is we received notification extremely late in the game. We went with Techno. We felt that that was the best choice for Acushnet based on the information that we had at the time. If I would know now, and I think if my sister-in-law who lives in Fairhaven would have known now what it actually entails or what it doesn't entail, I think, you know, and the lack of support, I'm not sure if Techno would have been the best option, but it is what it is. We're doing the best we can. We are proud to, so we're doing our best. I gotta give a lot of props and a lot of kudos to our CIA director, Carrie Stoffel, for the work that she has done with TechR. She has been amazing, answering phone calls, answering emails. There's so much involved in all of this. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't tiring, because you feel bad. You feel for these parents that call you frustrated. You feel for these parents that email you and say, I'm at the end of the road. I just want help. Can someone please explain this to me? And we're trying. We've been, Dr. Bailey, myself, Mrs. Stoffel, I believe Mrs. Bencourt, we've been on the conference calls with Techno. And they really didn't answer the questions we were looking for, did they? So we're doing what we can. I'm hoping Techno is going to get better with their support. We're here to continue to support families. I want them to know that. If they need help, you know, there's tech assistance at acushneschools.us. That's the best email. That'll go to all 3 of us, everyone in the tech department. And last but not least, we're going to continue to tweak our Wi-Fi, continuing to install web cameras on all the teachers' computers, and just support wherever we can. And I found this quote and I thought it was really good because I think it speaks a lot of truth. Technology will not replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers can be transformational. So, really quickly, I will end with, I could not do this job and the school would not function without Ken Pamplona, who's one of my computer network people, Kathleen Warren, our registrar database analyst, Kathy Shavit, and I really got to give kudos to Monique Cote and Jean Downey for stepping up to the plate this year. They're obviously computer teachers. One's at the Jean Downey teaches computer basics at the elementary school. Monique Cote teaches computers here at the middle school, and they've kind of, with COVID going on, they've kind of stepped out of their regular general roles as their classroom teachers, and they have been instrumental in integrating technology across the district and assisting staff. So that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know I said I wasn't going to be long-winded, and here I am being long-winded, so.
Thank you for the update. Clearly, you have your hands full. And I would say, as a parent, I've been pretty impressed with how the Google Classrooms have been set up for our students. It's easy to navigate, it's straightforward, there's a lot of information there. Really appreciate the student learning guides that are there, sort of as a roadmap, not only for parents, but for kids, it's easy for them to follow. So, I mean, all things considered, and everything you guys are dealing with, I think what's been set up for our school system is really fantastic. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Madam.
Mr. Oliver, for the,
Yes.
we mentioned on the second grade, loaners would be distributed to, well, that's it, right? So in other words, like the first graders and kindergartners, they're not really priority because they pay for it.
Well,
Is that right?
yeah, that's a good question. So we're getting out secondary loaners, maybe Thursday, if not Thursday, definitely on Friday, they'll be available. By K1, honestly, Mr. Tubbs, my hope is that the shipment of, the 400 computers will be in within the next week. So
You think we'll be one-to-one, like how soon?
how soon do I think we'll be one-to-one? I think that's $1 million question. I think, I can tell you that once we get them in, I will make it a point, my staff will make it a point to turn them around. I think to be able to unbox them, prep them. And then one of the things I really should mention, which I'm thrilled about, is that I got an intern on Monday. Actually started last week, Bridgewater State College junior, who's looking to intern in IT. So I now have an intern, which I'm thrilled about, who's really been a great help already. But my hope is that once I receive them, they should be turned around. I'm going to do my best to turn them around in a week, meaning if you're looking at 2 pallets worth, when you're talking about that in Chromebooks, you're looking at about 2 pallets worth of Chromebooks that have to be unboxed, configured, they have to be initiated and all that. So.
My last question would be, what comments or suggestions do you have for the families that are kind of, I've seen people taking the social media to kind of vent in regards to communication issues, not hearing back, that type of thing. Do you have something set up for those families to connect with the schools and so that they're not, going on the social media and actually hearing back from the schools? Is there a way that you set up for them to connect?
Excellent question, Mr. Tubbs. Tech assistance at acushnet.schools.us is the best way to get in touch with us. I'm only one person. Literally, before COVID, I literally get, we've talked about this at different ways to handle this. But between vendor calls and I can literally spend my day just answering the phone and trying to help people out. So I have a fabulous team, and I would just recommend, before you take to social media, at least give us the opportunity. Email us. Email is the best way. I can almost say that if you send an email to techassistance@acushnet.schools.us, you will get a response. We're committed 12 to 24 hours. That you'll hear from someone. I know there was a parent that was frustrated. She reached out. Kathleen Warren, one of the techs that worked for me, reached out to the parent. I think that night, by 11 o'clock that next morning, the parent was inside the lobby here getting her computer. She literally worked with this father, showing him what he needed to do in order to be successful. This was a tech parent, to be successful with Techer. So I wish there was an easy answer, but there's only so many hours in a day. We literally have answered and responded to hundreds of emails because people are frustrated, and I completely get it. I wish there was a magical, I wish there was I don't want to say bullet, but I wish there was a magic, wand that we could just fix this.
I have one more question. The public Wi-Fi, is that going to be password protected?
The public Wi-Fi.
I checked it out before. Is that going to, so when I think of public Wi-Fi, like,
you're gonna be standing out there and just connect.
Yeah, so in regards to the public Wi-Fi, that is something that we're still working on. If you were to go right now out to the public Wi-Fi that's out in the fields, what you're gonna find, which is eventually going to come in the building, but once again, this all takes time, is that you're gonna find in order to get onto the public Wi-Fi, it's not gonna be password protected, but there's gonna be what's called a splash page. That'd be like if you go to Logan Airport, if you go to any of the large commercial hotels in which you have to, you click on it and then it comes up like, you know, welcome to Marriott, and you have to little checkbox, I agree to the acceptable use policy, and then you'll have an IP lease or an internet lease for 60 minutes, and then it'll kick you off. But ultimately, it all takes time, but yes, that's the plan in which the public Wi-Fi will eventually not have a password. And it doesn't right now. If you were to go outside, you get that scenario in which you just have to check box and you're on.
Dr. Bailey, I could just add to answer the question. We recently had a parent forum or presentation, and we did talk about communication to the school department, that direct communication to the school department, whether it's from your child's teacher, your child's principal, the superintendent's office, is the best way. And through that presentation, we gave them access to email us. It was a Google form. And we're actually receiving those emails, and those responses are going right out by the administrators. People just say, I've got this one, you know, and parents get an answer. What we've reminded families is social media is social media. You're not getting accurate information. You will get accurate information directly through the school. So there is that presentation where they can access and actually write to us. And we have had many families access that. So that's been great.
And that presentation is still up?
It's a reference page.
You're referring to the YouTube, yes, to the YouTube, yep.
That aired last week. Yeah.
I accessed that today.
Good. Excellent.
Anything else?
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Thank you, everyone.
So all I have, the last thing, other than that is that, you know, we didn't anticipate. I did send the committee an email today that we have hired Mike Shea to help out as an administrator at the elementary school. He's really excited about this. Mr. Johnson is excited. And the great thing about this is he knows the staff, people know him, so it's just going to be a smooth transition, especially given this time of the year that we struggled to hire a principal in the midst of a global pandemic. So we're in a very good situation right now, and he will begin as early as possibly this Friday, but if not Friday, next week, and the hours will fluctuate. So just wanted to let you know that.
Dave. All right, business managers report.
Okay, very good, thank you. Great, we're going to do a business manager's update. I'll try to be brief as possible, but there is a lot of important information. So if you have questions that I go through quickly, we'll certainly take them. So I thought it would be helpful to start off by summarizing all of the funds under the school department's control. We have some new members here, so some of the things that we'll talk about over the course of the year, I wanted to make sure to highlight that. So first and foremost, we have our local school operating budget, and that's generally what you're going to hear me give you updates on every month. So the sheet that you see that has a spreadsheet budget summary, that's what our local school operating budget is, what town meeting votes on each year, and what is the bulk of our funds. We also have some grants and funds that are under our control, grants administered by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and I've listed them there and the amounts that we were awarded for this year. And I think in an upcoming school committee meeting, I'll take each grant and summarize it for you so you know what each grant can be used for and is used for. So you can see under the control of DESE administered grants, almost $800,000. There's 2 new grants there new to this year related to the coronavirus relief. So there's the ESSER, which we call the CARES Fund Act,
that we were awarded $77,713, and also the Coronavirus Relief Fund School Reopening Grant. And you've heard me talk about funding things through that grant at past meetings. We also were awarded this year also another new grant, the Food Security Infrastructure Grant, for almost $32,000, and that's going to help with purchasing equipment and packaging for to deliver our lunches, which I'll talk about later during my presentation during hybrid and remote learning periods. We also have revolving funds. Revolving funds, they're called revolving funds because they continue annually. So the school budget, what isn't spent by June 30th, reverts to the town. The revolving funds, they all operate under a certain set of rules and regulations based on what they were approved for and set up by school finance regulations. So I also listed those here. And you also have a sheet in your packet further on that just says school department fund balances as of 6/30, okay? So that lists all of our school revolving funds. So we have a school lunch revolving fund, and I put in your packet the source of revenue, the description, and what it can be used for, the expenses. School lunch revolving is pretty self-explanatory. It's the operation of our school lunch program. That's a self-sufficient program, self-operating. It relies on the revenues from meal sales and reimbursements on the sales to pay the wages and the cost of food and salaries. We have the special ed circuit breaker account, which is state reimbursement for qualifying special education costs, and we use that to fund tuitions and contract services for special education services. We have two funds, one at the middle school and one at the elementary school. We call those our principals account, and that's donations for the benefit of the students. So we might get donations from, say, box tops, or sometimes a local Acushnet group like the Acushnet Brewer Race, and they'll fund activities like field trips, dances, and performances. The school building rental fund is for the upkeep of the facilities, and we get that through our user fees and charges, and we can spend it on anything to custodial costs, say on the weekends for overtime if we have a community group here, to repairs and maintenance for upkeep of the building and grounds. Non-resident tuition, we have several years ago, we created this fund when we were trying to attract students from other districts into our resource room. So they would pay us a tuition, and we can use that to run the cost of that room. We haven't had any non-Acushnet students in the resource room in many years. We did have one Fairhaven student, but the mechanism is there to accept tuitions into that fund. We also have our preschool program, which is, our fully funded preschool, tuition payments from parents and families to have their students come into the preschool program. And also one of the newer ones is the Special Education Reserve Fund, and that is town meeting appropriation for eligible special ed expenses. Now, one item of note, the balance there, I put $150,000 because that's what it was as of June 30th. I was just notified after I did this presentation that the town did make the transfer of funds from last year's budget into that fund, so that fund now has $200,000. Okay, so those are our revolving funds. Now, one other sheet that we have that I wanted to let you know is our school department capital funds. And these are funds that are awarded, say, at town meeting for special projects, capital projects. You can see them here, they're itemized on this sheet. So what we had approved at FY21 town meeting, what we had last year's town meeting, and those can carry over what we've expended and what's available. So you can see we have projects for curriculum adoption, parking lot maintenance, rooftop condensers, preventative maintenance on the roof, to put in the air conditioning in the server room, technology upgrade, fire and burglar alarm upgrade the HVAC server. At the time when we thought that we were going to have to replace some pipes in one of the APS bathrooms, that was going to require a lot of extensive work of digging up the floors and relaying the tile. We received $20,000, so that is really specific to that project, which actually, fortunately, was not needed. So I have that there as a placeholder that maybe in an upcoming town meeting we can say to the town, hey, we're not going to spend that money, but can we use it on another project, and they have to reappropriate it. And also the Wi-Fi upgrade that you heard Mr. Oliver talking about. So that's what we have for our capital requests, and additionally the special ed stabilization account. So I just thought it would be helpful to provide just a quick, overview of all the funds under the school department's control. And that way you can understand sometimes when we talk about where we get funding from with certain things. Like I said, in a future meeting, I will go through all of our grants and let you know some of the things that we can use them for, not use them for, and what the status of that is.
Hey, I have a question. So
Yes.
for things like the playground and ongoing maintenance, where does that funding come from? And so, for example, like even if it's multi-function star, which is the base of the playground, like where does that come from? And do you plan for ongoing maintenance for things like that?
Sure. So it can come from a variety of places. It could come from the local school operating budget if it was something minor that we have a general maintenance account for each school. So we would look to see what the funding is there. Perhaps if we were in the spring, getting close to the end of the fiscal year, we want to use those funds. If it's a major renovation, like we did the Victoria renovation last fall, we used the school building revolving fund to fund most of those expenses. So now that we will be having our little toy constructed, that came from a variety of sources, most notably some donations from the PTO and also capital funding from the CPC group in town. But if for ongoing, we would look to any fundraising efforts for that, or if it's something that we could, manage within our school funds, like I noted, we would use that. So you also have the updated sheet, which I'll continue to include each month, the school department COVID-19 expenditures for potential reimbursement. This is just a running list of things that we've had to purchase due to our learning environment for various things. What I did for this one, for the purposes of this meeting, is I sort of enhanced it so that I can show you, okay, we're going to schedule some of these expenses to be paid for from the $350,000 that the town has allotted us from their funds, or we're going to use the CDRF, the Coronavirus Relief Fund Reopening Grant, for that. Now, the grants are specific as to what they can and can't pay for, and as I mentioned before, unfortunately, both of those sources of funds end December 30th. So that's, presenting a challenge because we're fortunate to have a large amount of funds, but we have a short amount of time to be able to use it, and some of the expenditures, our large expenditures, are the TECA tuitions and salaries that we need to continue through the year. So I know at one of either the budget subcommittee meeting or the last meeting, I mentioned that we are going to have to continue expenditures past December 30th. So you'll see in my written report, itemizing those expenditures that I can anticipate that we will have to continue to pay. TECA tuition, we're down to about 90 students. So last time I spoke to you all, I believe we thought it was going to be $130,000 for each semester. Now we've had some students leave TECA and come back to our buildings. So the TECA tuition has gone down right now to about just under $117,000 per semester. So we're going to need to fund that next in January. Also, we have some costs for the additional bus runs for Fairhaven High School. Yes.
For the TECA students, is it possible, and I don't know if this is probably a question for Dr. Bailey, if TECA is going not so well with parents, will the parents be able to go into, in January, back to Acushnet, but be completely remote? Will that be, is that being considered?
Yes, everything's up for discussion right now. We've actually started with our leadership team those exact discussions because we want to be prepared in December for January, and we're going to be surveying those families in TECA. We've been able to take the families back who really barely started TECA, and we've accommodated them. We know that we have a couple of families, at least that we know of, that have already said in January they'd like to switch back. We want to be prepared. If TECA is not the choice of the district, the learning management system, we are brainstorming ideas on either they're going to come back or possibly look at a remote type of program, whether we look at like the Acushnet Public Schools teacher, if we reorganize and repurpose, we've done it. But it's a lot of planning, and a lot of work, so that's why we started those conversations already.
That's great. Just spitballing, I don't know if it's even possible to collect data to see, so for example, if you had some sort of assessment to all students, tech and hybrid, and just get a sense for, possibly is are the tech students behind, for example, that might be something that would weigh into that decision. That would be awesome.
So what will happen is, when and if the students choose to return, they're still considered Acushnet students, and we will be looking at the data and managing that. Right now, we don't administer any assessments to the TECA students, it's all us in TECA. We're able to look at their progress. And from my understanding, I think there are some families that are getting into routine with TECA, and it is robust. It seems to be a benefit for some older children and those children that have the support at home to help them. We were told at the beginning that the parents was going to be designated as the learning coach. And I think that is a big miscommunication, not just with Acushnet, as Mr. Oliver said, but it was across the state. And when I was on a call with TECA, there was probably 75 other participants expressing the same concerns that Acushnet has. So we're continuing our communication and dealing with our concerns with TECA. We're going to see how it goes. We're keeping an open mind, and we're hoping for the best. We want our students to have a successful experience with TECA.
It would be nice if we came up with a remote program with our own teachers, for those parents that still feel that they need to be remote, but feel that TECA is not really the way that it needs to. Thank you.
I think it's been a little more difficult in Acushnet because we're a small district and we don't have the number of teachers that other districts have. For example, there's only one 5th grade ELA teacher, one 5th grade math teacher. So when you have kids that need a teacher in those content areas, it's really hard to start pulling teachers, especially at the middle school level, for a program like that. Yes?
Sorry, one more. Is it possible, and I know you're thinking about this, but my thoughts when we first talked about full remote was that instead of the children going back, let's say they go to school Monday and Tuesday, that they would just be home Monday and Tuesday, and then be home on that Thursday and Friday, and just be with that teacher and get the packets. That was my thought. So when TECA came about, that was something new. So is that one of the options that you're thinking about? Is just having the kids instead of having a separate teacher just for remote, just being in with those classrooms, just being home?
So I think right now it's preliminary discussion. We want to really see how our teachers are doing. This is a very big lift for them to be teaching children at home and taking kids in front of them. We don't want to make any promises, but everything is on the table. That idea is great because that's what we're doing right now. We're just, doing a breakdown of all the ideas because we know we want to be ready for different scenarios come, late fall and winter.
Because if the student is quarantined, they are still able to work from home, so that would be like the same thing, correct?
Right.
They would just be home. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Flynn, I had a question. And I might be skipping ahead, I'm sorry. I see that the air purifiers, but I think it's awesome that we're getting air purifiers in the classroom. That's great, but to Mr. Hood's point, when you get stuff, it's like I have them at home. HEPA filters cost a ton. And when we buy ours, it gives you an estimate of how much you're going to spend on HEPA filters, and it's not correct. So I'm just curious, if we, obviously it's a large expense, but then it's going to be an ongoing maintenance expense as well. Is that going to be an issue from a budget standpoint?
So, yes, I believe for a couple of things. I was in the Board of Selectmen's meeting earlier tonight, and I did discuss this briefly with them. Right now, I'll skip ahead to the air purifiers discussion real quick. So we had started to purchase air purifiers for some of our classrooms that did not have windows. That was the first level. And we kind of got them from Amazon based on the room size. And these rooms were smaller. They were the smaller special ed classrooms, kind of like at the elementary school, what you see in my office or Kelly's office, okay? But with the interior without windows. So we probably purchased about 10 of those. Now, when we first started purchasing them, you could buy the optional 3 filters with it. Great, so we did that. The next time we purchased them, sorry, sold out. So that's obstacle number 1, is, you know, as you heard this at all of our talk, is getting these things into veterans. So then we purchased, I would say, between 10 and 15 for some of those rooms that we identified. Then the next opportunity came. And as we know, these air purifiers can be very costly. We have a lot of rooms. But we do know that it is one of the 3 recommended things. I was at a NASBO presentation virtual last week. I reviewed our NASBO is the Mass Association of School Business Officials, I'm sorry. And we had a person from the Harvard School of Public Health, Dr. Joseph Allen, I believe. And he recommended that buildings do 3 things, even not in a pandemic. Number 1, open the windows. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to get those windows open every morning. Our custodians are going around and opening windows as best as they can, weather depending. I mean, obviously when the winter comes, we're going to try to leverage opening the windows and tweaking the heat to try to maintain a comfortable temperature, but still get that fresh air in. Some days it's not going to be possible. But, you know, it's an experiment. So open the windows, properly functioning univents. So we spent some money to have advanced air come in and look at all of our HVAC equipment, the belts, the motors, the pulleys, to make sure that all of that is working. We had our part-time custodian go around and make sure to check out the univents, mostly here at Fort Middle School is where we have univents. Make sure those filters are clean, get those things in operating condition. And also the UCA. The third thing that he recommended, number 1, windows, number 2, univents, number 3, air purifiers. And that came around the same time that we were made aware of an opportunity from NSTAR, from Eversource, of an incentive of up to $200 on qualifying air purifiers. So our Director of Facilities, Steve Willett, did a lot of legwork to research with what qualifies, what doesn't qualify, and what are we going to be able to purchase these, and actually where can we find these. And once, as you may or may not know, once you spend over $10,000 in a school or municipality, you have to get 3 quotes. Over $50,000 is a sealed bid. So we knew we were going to spend more than $10,000. So we needed to get 3 quotes. So to make a long story short, we started by ordering 40 of these air purifiers that will comply with the incentive. So these were approximately $540 each, and the incentive should bring it down to $340. So we're expecting those next week, and you are correct. That's one thing that Mr. Willett quickly brought to my attention that, you know, once they come in, it's wonderful, but we need to have custodians to clean the filters, change the filters, we need to purchase those. So it's not the magic, you know, it's not the magic pill. It's a good thing, but it is going to require ongoing time, effort, maintenance, and cost. One thing I can tell you is if we are able to get our hands on some filters to be able to change them, and some of these that require that, we hope to be able to use I thought, an excellent use of some of the town funds. We fully allocated our CDRF funds to be to purchase some of these prior to December 31st and get a good inventory in stock if we can get them available. So we've got a time constraint and a financial constraint. If only these funds went to June 30th, I'd have a lot more flexibility. We have a lot more flexibility to do some of these things. So once we get these 40 in, we're going to check them out. We're going to prioritize the rooms that go into no window, 1 window, 2 windows. And then if they seem to be working very well, it seems to be a good investment, we'll go out and try to get more for the rest of our classrooms, okay? So we're gonna start the elementary school because most of our rooms here have the univents, so they're getting the air exchange from the fresh air from the outside circulating through those univents. At the elementary school, their system works a little bit differently, so that's why we're gonna start at the elementary school with air purifiers. So I hope that answered your question.
No, I think it's great.
So that's what we're doing there. Also, the school stand facilities, just real quick, I'm sure you've noticed them, we installed even more hand sanitizing stations, including mobile ones. I think there's one in this hallway. So we can pick those up and move them as needed. The kids will sanitize before lunch. I see them being used all the time. So we, to your question, Mr. Tubbs, our problem is not going to be hand sanitizing station. It's going to be keeping up with the hand sanitizer because it's good news that it's being used. It seems to be available. I'm not having a problem getting it, but also it is costly. So we have that. We've installed sensor faucets and flushometers. I believe that there's still some that Steve does need to install. Keep in mind that we have ordered upwards of 60 to 70 sensor faucets and 60 to 70 flushometers for the toilets and urinals. So that's a lot of retrofitting for one person to do who's also responsible for everything else in these buildings. So he's doing the best he can right now, but just, I just wanted to, and that was his idea when he first hit the street here, even before we knew that the pandemic was going to affect us as much as this. So we're working on that. We talked about the air purifiers. I talked a little bit about advanced air. We had them come in and troubleshoot and repair HVAC equipment, including motors, exhaust fans, pulleys, and belts at both buildings. That work seems to be done, and it came in right now. I'm probably still expecting some invoices, but I had put on here, I estimated about $25,000, and that's probably where we're going to land with that. We've been changing the filters in the univents. I mentioned we're opening up windows every day as the weather permits. We also purchased and received 6 more electrostatic sprayers. I had ordered 2 at the end of last year. That finally came in. In the meantime, we had ordered 4 more. So we are both stocked with those. I will say they're very finicky and prone to breaking down. So it's good that we have extra. So we actually do have 1 for each custodian. We've hired 1 full-time custodian, temporary custodian, and 1 part-time. We still need 1 more full-time custodian. Here at Floyd Middle School, we've advertised extensively since June. We have not been able to find another one. We need custodian subs in case we have an absence of custodian out. We rely on them every day to keep us, to keep the building safe, to keep us safe, and even more so during this pandemic. They're really our first line of defense, and we are asking them, just like we're asking our teachers and all of our staff to do more than we had ever thought we needed. And right now, our plan was based on having custodians in each building, 2 custodians during the day. So being down that 1 person right now is definitely presenting us with some challenges. I will say that. So
Are we not getting any candidates at all, or are we not getting candidates with the qualifications?
So I think the trouble is it's both. We weren't getting many candidates. Then when we saw that the $600 unemployment went away, we started to get more candidates. Now we're not getting as much, but I think we've tried to change the title a little bit and what we're looking for. The problem is once we contact them and let them know that it's a temporary position, if they are currently working, they don't want to give up a position that they have to come and work for 3 to 6 to 9 months and then be faced with unemployment in the future. So, that's been difficult. And then sometimes we haven't had the specific skills that we're looking for. They haven't been suitable for the position.
Is getting a contractor a possibility?
So I think that's where we're looking at now. I know that Mr. Willett has put some feelers out to various temp agencies or contract cleaners. So, we're trying to explore all options and canvas everything. So, hopefully in a month when I report back to you, I'll have some better news for that. But, you know, the guys are working really hard, and girls, we have our new custodians, female, they're working really hard. We've changed shifts for them. Some of them are coming down on the night shift to work part of the day shift. They're working overtime. We have them coming in if they are available, all 8 of them coming in on Saturdays from 7 to 11 to assist with the deep cleaning. And, you know, I know it was alluded to earlier with some of our staff too. We don't want to burn them out too, because it is a tough job. It's long hours. It's difficult work. It's you know, of course, it's anxiety causing and it's stressful for them. So you know, it's a tough balance between getting what we need to get done, of course, like Mr. Oliver said, with the resources we have. But you know, I know that they're doing their best, and you know, hopefully we can get them the help they need. I'll be real quick with transportation. We finalized all of our routes so far. We handed out bus passes during orientation. So as you know, the challenge was we had to limit each bus to 25 students. So we were able to do that. Fortunately, we do have some buses. We have 1 person on a waiting list right now, so that's good. I mean, it's not good that we have 1 person on a waiting list, but it could be worse, right? So we're hoping in the next couple of weeks, maybe as people who may have signed up for the bus, they don't end up taking the bus, we can free up some space on the bus. We do have buses that are adding their capacity. So if you hear, you know, through town or through social media that, you know, somebody can't get on the bus or what have you, we do have buses adding their capacity of 3 at the elementary school for both cohorts, and 2 buses at near capacity, not at capacity, at 4 in cohort B, and 1 bus near capacity in cohort A. And we're also cleaning the buses every day, using one of our custodians when the buses return to the yard after the morning runs and after the afternoon runs. So our Floyd Middle School custodian, the second, we brought him down to 11 to 7. He reports here, he cleans the buses, and then helps out inside the building, and then at the buses return, he'll go back out there. So that's how we are addressing that. And finally, school nutrition. So just again, the universal free breakfast and lunch through 12/31, so that means that any student can get a free breakfast and a lunch, and we encourage them to do so. We have our entire CAF staff now back to work now that we have more students to serve. Students can still bring lunches from home. We are packaging them in small handle bags for ease of carry in the elementary school. Ms. Shelley comes out with a cart with all the lunches and will distribute them to the students. And also at dismissal, we're providing breakfast and lunch bags for hybrid students to take home from the days they are not in school. So today, they took home some lunches and breakfast for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Virtual learners will be able to receive 5-day meal boxes starting on October 7th, tomorrow. Pickup is 12 to 1 at the middle school gym door. So you'll need to pre-order, and details are on the district webpage. And finally, like I mentioned, we've been awarding almost $31,000 in the food security infrastructure grant. That's going to help with the packaging and equipment, you know, incurred by this massive shift in meal service. You know, these the kids would come through the line behind the wall here. They get the hot lunch, they pay and sit down. Now here, they're still going into the CAF here at Ford, but at the elementary school, it's being served to them at their station. So it's a lot, and I appreciate your patience. So hopefully this has been, you know, helpful and informative and comprehensive. Just like we heard Mr. Oliver and Dr. Bailey, a lot of time and effort has gone into, has been exerted by our small finance staff, it's myself and Mr. Raposo, technology, we heard Mr. Oliver, our facility staff and nutrition staff to reopen the building. Under unprecedented, you know, can't be said enough. We don't have the past to look back to. We don't have a playbook. So we don't have history to look back to. So we've been going along with this. We have a long way to go, you know, in a short amount of time. And, you know, I think I would be remiss not to say how hard, you know, my staffs and the staffs that work in facilities and operations and finance have worked to get to where we are now. Like Dr. Bailey said, it's not ideal. It's not perfect. But, you know, I was really happy with the way things went yesterday and today. For the first day of school like this, you know, the buildings were operating well. We didn't have any major catastrophes or even any minor catastrophes. The students seemed to be happy, the staff was happy, so, you know, overall, I'm proud and happy that the work that we all did over the summer has really, you know, worked out as well as it has. You know, and hopefully it's just going to get better. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Thank you for that update. Okay, communication and information. Oh, I'm sorry, school committee member reports.
Do we have, what is our next step now for the policy committee? Are we meeting again, just the sub-policy committee, or are we meeting as a group? How are we rectifying this?
So I think, it's up to you. If we're still at an impasse, we may be. It's really up to the committee and the chairperson as how we best proceed. If that's the question you're asking about, that discussions.
So should we discuss this as a group again and have another public meeting sooner than later, or?
Yeah, this falls under one of those things where, like I was mentioning before, like we're about to adjourn and then a month later, and the kids have been back in our buildings since the middle of September, and we still don't have a mask policy officially. So I guess that's my question to you. What do we do? When do we reconvene on that?
Well, I mean, I think if the committee feels that they've got the information they need to take a vote, then I don't think any further discussion is needed, and we can move to a vote. I would ask the policy subcommittee if they want to take this further at the committee level for discussion based on what we've heard.
I don't know that there's anything else that's going to come out of the discussion at the subcommittee level. I think it's probably best to put forth to the committee. And again, I feel like to some degree, this debate about the face mask, in my opinion, is more to me perhaps about implementation than it is about what the mask policy says, but again, the situation that we're in, so I think we should bring it forth.
I would like to hear, you know, based on the recommendations that I made for Dr. Bailey, I mean, could we discuss at our next public meeting some options that maybe you can think about based on my recommendations, just so we're not voting on it and then you're, do you follow what I mean? Like, I'd like to know if there are some recommendations by you or maybe some, maybe other alternatives or something to the points that I made tonight. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the sub.
So the biggest concern is coverage and the airborne, transfer. I can tell you we don't have the staff for coverage, so that's the big issue, right? The logistics of it.
And I would just add, like, beyond, so let's say that for some reason this isn't working out the way that it's currently planned in the cafeteria. We probably need to be explored and be such an question in the event that we have to shift, regardless of whether it's policy A or B that is adopted.
I just, again, not to rehash the conversation, but we have been advised by legal that it would be, concerning to go down that road because we do have people following the protocol, even though we don't have a policy, an official policy in place. An unfair legal practice is not out of question as we heard tonight. And the attorney did tell us that several times. So,
Paula, just to clarify, what I heard, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard the attorney was not specifically saying you shouldn't be lunching in the cafeteria, you shouldn't be lunching in the classroom. His viewpoint was you probably want this policy to be relatively broad because you're going to essentially take some boxes.
that's what I said.
I have a question regarding the, and I don't know if we can discuss this in open meeting or if this is executive session, so just stop me. I'm confused on how this could be an unfair labor practice if they are giving lunch just in a different location.
Well, well, you talked about mask breaks, not just lunch, so staff, so when staff, anything that's COVID related and health and safety has to be negotiated for the teachers' return to school. So we did do that. Their MOA is broad, but they came back with the understanding that these were the conditions that they felt safe to be back. So knowing that they were going to be in classrooms where the masks were not coming off is something that they feel safe with, right? Knowing that they're going to go outside or in a larger area, people felt comfortable with that. If we start changing that, what happens is we didn't officially negotiate with the teachers union because it is COVID related and health and safety related. They would file it under their labor practice.
But according to the MOA, it does not mention anything about the students not having masks on. The only thing that I read in there was that a teacher could, as long as they were 6 feet away from an individual, they could take their mask off. Nothing was mentioned about students.
So MOA is for adults, not the students.
Oh.
So the MOA that we negotiate is just for faculty and staff.
But you just said the students, they were not comfortable with the students have taken their masks off in the
So
class.
for example, a specialist would have to go into several classrooms. Let's just say they go in for music, right? And it's being held in the classroom. You know, they were already concerned that they're going in and not just going in with one pod of students, like a classroom teacher has their one pod. They're actually, but they felt safe knowing that the masks were kept on while they were in those classrooms.
And they would be. Well, I mean, like I said, I'm only
Not if we write a policy that states that they can come off once an hour. And here's the thing, once we write something like that, you have adults that are going to do things. We have it very uniform right now that everybody is following. It's pretty strict policy. I just can't say this enough. I think it's better to start off strict, and as we get the data and the science and hopefully the numbers start going the other direction, then we can talk about loosening up.
But I'm not talking about loosening up. This is the thing. You're suggesting that I'm loosening the policy of masks, and I'm not loosening it. I feel that I'm making it more strict because the amount of susceptibility of the students moving around the building is more of a detriment than it is a help. And that if they're doing it in one location at their same seat, then that is safer than having them walk around the building and doing it in different locations where other students have just been.
Yeah, you make great points. There's so many factors that we had to consider. So the people who have recommended these decisions are based on all of the information, and they made the very best decision they could based on the information in terms of not having coverage, being greater than 6 feet. Staff come to me and said, we've got an underlying health condition. I need to make sure that my kids have the mask on. And I can respect that, right? Because everyone's situation is different. I just think right now in our district, we're in a happy place overall. I haven't received any complaints except for one. But overall, I mean, I didn't know about that survey that the union president talked about tonight. That was done through the ATA, so I have yet to see those results. But she didn't just talk about face coverings. I think she told me it was all about health and safety of the district. And it sounds like people are feeling, and I feel this too because we haven't had a lot of requests for leaves of absences, whereas many districts right now are going through that issue, where people are taking leaves and they can't get the replacement teachers, which is a whole other problem. I'm just concerned that making a change, which would be viewed as a major change, could lead, like we talked about tonight, to another problem. You know what I mean? And then how do we deal with that problem? And then,
Dr. Bailey, I would want to, Mr. Summer, make a comment.
One thing is, both of my kids, as a parent, both of my kids went through the orientation. That night they got home and they put the water bottle in the counters, and both of them were full. Neither one of them feel comfortable to say, can I go for a water break outside? So, me knowing that, I'm pretty much assured that my kids are going to get water throughout the day. Unless it's that much.
I think we talked about that at the subcommittee, and I certainly am in favor of adopting a broader policy and making it clear, or even putting something in it that they're allowed to take a water break at the desk, because I think, you know, it could that be viewed as extreme? Yeah. And again, there's no wrong or right answers. No, I think taking a water break at a desk is a reasonable course of action.
But writing it into the policy is not necessary.
Yes, I agree. I just have my biggest issue with it is getting everybody together in one space, and I just, you know, I have to reference this because I sometimes I lose my mind. I'm not sure if I'm citing things correctly, but it says, you know, that the disinfectants must dwell on surfaces or remain visibly wet for specified amounts of time in order to be effective. So if we have people wiping down seats and desks, that's not correct. And so again, I don't know how that is a safer process of having, you know, multiple kids sitting in the same seat back to back to back after hand to mouth eating, and that's how we're going to get. And then everybody all together, that's how we're going to get infection and spread in these schools, in my opinion. And that to me, that's the biggest thing. It's not, I mean, you would need 20, 30 minutes in between each lunch period. Now you're talking about kids eating at, I don't know, 9:45 in the morning, you know, so I don't know for that to happen. That's like 3 hours of lunch.
So I hear your concern.
Yeah.
I just, how do we make people appear? So we know we have a human capacity problem. I mean, the safety issues, I hear everybody around this table. I understand what you're saying, but I'm just trying to get down to the reality of the capacity that we're dealing with. And also the realities of teachers' bylaw needing the breaks. And so how do we navigate that?
Well, how many people are on, how many staff are on lunch, like one shift in let's say next door? You know?
It's a good handful, but I can get you an exact number.
So, yeah, a few things.
But I'm saying that there's already staff appointed to that duty.
But it's certainly not the number of classrooms that we would have to monitor.
So for example, each grade might have 6 or 7 classrooms to monitor, for example. So if we've got 5 available for 6 or 7 classrooms, like, to me, that's an easier problem to solve.
I mean, I know you're saying it's easy, but I have talked to our principals. These are people who work in education and who have.
This isn't about education, it's just lunch.
It's
So we're talking
logistics,
about a person
operations.
standing in a doorway with 2 connected classrooms, monitoring 2 classrooms in one body.
Not all classrooms are connected in that way.
No, but you could structure lunch in a way where you would have the availability, where you could, you know, it's the same as a teacher sitting there watching 20 kids here as opposed to 10 like this in the doorway.
We don't have the number of staff.
If you have 5 that are already designated to the lunch shift, and you only have to cover 6 or 7 classrooms, it is possible.
It's the same people that do the lunch shifts. So like you said, they would start eating at 8:30 in the morning and go all the way until the end of the day by the time they finish each individual classrooms. Because
That's not, no way, because you've got 4 lunch shifts. You've got 4 lunch shifts with no transfer. The only transfer is whoever's doing the coverage. But I'm not gonna get like into
But
all of
I
that.
mean, I think are we considering here that those teachers have to take an independent?
I don't think
look at
it's
their own?
usually teachers that I cover, but I could be wrong.
correct.
But the teachers do have to get their lunch, yeah, absolutely. So there's no, I'm not saying it's not tricky, but I don't think it's as complicated as everything that we're doing currently, if that makes sense. And it would eliminate this entire thing, like, are we cleaning correctly in between the kids? Well, no.
Well, I know that our facilities director did consult with Marty about the chemical use in between.
But again, if they're wiping off the seats because they're wet, that's not correct.
So what we do now, this is, and we've talked about how we have two different buildings, right? Here, it's working very well, at least the first 2 days, okay? And we're gonna continue to look at it each day. Here we've got a good system, we're fortunate we have enough space, enough desks, so that, we don't have that situation of having the desks wet or wiping away the chemicals. One thing that we do is, number one, first of all, the product that we use, they are on the state FAC 85 green cleaning contract. So all of those are acceptable green cleaning products, okay? And they have to go through various standards to get on that contract. And so they're using those products. Those products we checked with our sales rep have a dwell time, which means the amount of time that they have to stay on the surface to be effective, of 3 to 5 minutes, okay? So yes, that's number one obstacle, correct. What we are doing is we do have, the custodians have, what looks like the wet Swiffer has a short handle and they can apply it right on the desk. So that's gonna eliminate the wiping with a rag if there's enough time to apply it and to dry, to dwell and dry. We set up, I don't know that it's been put into action yet, Mr. Johnson just came up with a new schedule of 15 minutes. So that might be, helpful to us in that regard, right? It's gonna buy us more time for that chemical to do its job. Like I said, we don't seem to have a problem here, but we're on day 2. So I think, we have a new group of kids coming in on Thursday, and we're gonna see how it goes. But you're correct, we do have, as Mrs. Downing said, we do have to be realistic about what we can do with the people and the time that we have. And that is certainly, one of the challenges. I can say that over the summer when we had our different reopening groups, I was the leader of the facilities and operations group, which included, the school operations. And one of the biggest things that came out in our group is, okay, 2 things. Number one, how do we get kids to school on limited capacity of buses? Number 2, how do we get all these kids in and out of the cafeteria to eat? And do we eat in the classroom? Do we eat in the cafeteria? And each side, as we said, each time we solve a problem, we've created several more. So I think, hopefully, as we go through the next couple of weeks, some of these problems may, I don't want to say take care of themselves because that sounds simple, but it's not. But we might see that as we get better at doing things or we figure out better ways of doing it, or even, maybe we purchase more of those little Swiffer things so that we can deploy more people. Once we get more custodians, if we are able to get another custodian, some of those things might work out, but we just need time and we need patience. And, like I said to one of our custodians today, hey, it's only day 2, we're doing good. As hard as it is today, it's going to be a little bit easier next week and the week after that. So that's, that's my 2 cents
I just think
about that.
No, I appreciate that, it was fun. I just think that we should, as a district, we should be starting with CDC and DESI guidelines, which tell us to, have lunch and mask breaks in the classroom instead of mixing cohorts in the cafeteria.
But I'm gonna just push back for a second, because, and I hear you, and I think we should abide by CDC and DESI guidelines at all costs. But I just read an article by the CDC that was in the Standard Times today, where it was emphasizing the airborne nature of this disease, and it was even saying, whatever you can, even 6 to 8 feet. So, again, so I get the surface issue, but at the same time, when we know our classrooms are limited in size, should we be removing our masks even at 6 feet when the CDC just put it out saying?
I think that's key what you just said. Should we be limiting our classrooms in size? Like that was the whole point, is to keep the groupings small so that we can handle infections when they occur, because they will.
The groupings are small.
Not when you've got 90 people in this room.
I'm talking about the classroom. Being in the classroom and removing the mask.
I think it's a valid point, and I totally can listen. I'm a parent, I'm worried about them meeting here, and I'm worried about them meeting in the classroom.
Yeah,
That's
same.
right? So, but I do think it is a fair point to say, and I get the traffic, and the amount of bodies, and that's a risk, okay? And the amount of time that we disinfect is a risk. I also think it is a valid point to say, I'm not sure being more people at 8 feet in this room is significantly safer than being in the classroom at 6 feet where you're not. I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
I don't either, there's so much.
And I think it's valid for raising this concern. I'm going to be honest with you. I have no problem with the kids eating in the classroom either. Again, my issue is about policy and what's in it. This is a valid discussion, but I just want to call out that I'm worried about the fact that, this is an airborne virus at 6 feet and kids are eating, and now what happens when they have trash and they put their mask on? How are we going to dispose of the trash? They might be moving it, so I'm worried about that too.
So to that point, when I saw already here, I was here for the end of the lunch shift before the students are instructed, they're dismissed row by row and day by class. So they go and they put their mask on, they go that way, dispose of their trash, even if they don't have trash, most likely they do. They come around and exit through those doors, hit the hand sanitizing station. So it is, well coordinated. And one thing too I want to say is that we talked about this a little bit. The school department does have protocols. I know Mrs. Benton was met in court discussing at our last meeting on responding to suspected cases, positive cases. And I had it pulled up earlier, but I don't right now. But I know that the Department of Ed protocol states about, we were concerned about how far reaching is this. And it states, it uses language that we're familiar with, close contacts. And it defines a close contact as someone who has been in the immediate area, I believe 6 feet, for 15 minutes or longer. So I think, without a mask, correct. So I think some of the concern, of course we need to be concerned about everything. Nobody knows. We just don't know. We don't know why people catch it, how they catch it. But in terms of like shift after shift, those I don't know that our protocols would require us to notify the entire, student body that sat in those seats for the lunch period. It would be the close contacts of the person who is suspected or has tested positive.
I think the problem
So there is some guidance as to who we would have to notify and what they would have to do to stay in school or return to school.
I think the problem is with the time that it takes for people to find out that they've got the positive, and then you've got to backtrack 2 or 3 days and figure out and then you're hearing from people on the committee, it's like, well, I know they were in a close contact, but if they were sitting at the desk of my kids, I want to know about it, and so even though you don't technically have to let these people know, you're probably gonna, or it's gonna create that whole can of worms, you know what I mean?
There's a level of anxiety associated with every amendment. With the testing, that even though that's a benefit, there's a level of anxiety with that. There's always, it's just the unknown. And I think, to my point earlier, I think we're just going to get better as each week goes along, and we'll make adjustments. No solution is, we don't have any data to support what solution is best.
I also want to bring something up that came up in our SNAP meeting, and this was from Catherine Cooper, and this is apparently the contact tracing NH Massachusetts is not in alignment with the DESI guidelines, and it's negatively impacting potentially people that are in like a poorer situation, because like if a child has a COVID positive at home, they're supposed to quarantine, but if they only have 1 bathroom in their home, then that child must quarantine after the 10-day period of the 2 negative test for so you've got the potential now for the child to be absent from school for like 24 days because of that. And I guess there's some, So this is off topic, I guess, but she has written, Catherine Cooper has written, I would encourage you to as well, Dr. Bailey. But that's an issue where if you've got a kid that lives in a mansion with 6 bathrooms, okay, they're not going to have to do the same quarantine as someone who might live in a one-room apartment with one bathroom rather. So I just wanted to be aware that that's not our argument, and it's negatively impacting people that would be perhaps more impoverished.
I would like before we bring this to an official vote, if Dr. Bailey can just do the math for us and tell us, for the coverages, how bad is it? Using, out of the box thinking and making sure that we're in compliance with contracts and everything. Like, how far off are we to potentially do that? I would like to know for my vote if that is something that possibly be feasible, and if not, show me the numbers so I can make a decision. That's just me personally. In addition to that, the drinks, the sips, I personally don't see that, and I think Ron, you should share that wasn't a big topic. I would be happy to add, at the discretion of the teacher, if that was helpful, if that made people more comfortable. I think that is there. Also, the mask breaks in the classroom. I really feel like they should, each child, according to this DESE and the CDC, they are requiring children to have mask breaks at least once an hour. But again, if we have a teacher that maybe feels uncomfortable about that, maybe there's a para that can jump in or something like that for a quick break, or they do take them to the different location. Like I said, my purpose is to minimize them moving to the different areas where other people have been. That is my goal for this, because I truly believe that if we have when we have a COVID positive person, and we cannot track where this person has been, or when the contamination has happened, or if it's been 15 minutes apart or whatever, we are going to shut down. And that's what we're trying to avoid. And again, that is my main concern. But if we, in this particular policy, if we keep everybody close-knit, then we will definitely know who's been affected, or who the possibility of being affected, and we'll be able to keep the school going. And again, safety of the children, the safety of the staff, and keeping learning alive in person is a goal of this version.
Yeah, I will get that information for the next school committee meeting.
In my opinion, I think we should move up the school committee meeting maybe in the next week. I don't know, what would you suggest getting some information together for us? I could send you an email with some of my particular maybe individual people can send their email with questions.
What they want to know.
To make a decision.
If somebody else has some information that you would like to know.
Do you need a week or two?
Yeah, the timeline for getting questions. Okay, so if the committee could try to get any questions to Dr. Bailey within, say, a week, and then we can have the school committee meeting to deliberate within 2 weeks. Dr. Bailey, does that give you enough time to gather the information you need?
To try and go with my schedule. It's just, I want to make sure that all of your questions are thoroughly answered. So as soon as I see what the questions are, I can let you know for sure, but I understand that you would rather meet sooner rather than later.
I do want to say that in light of the MOA points that Dr. Bailey before, that I think it makes me feel more comfortable having language that would be more at the discretion of the teacher, because that, to Mr. Hood's point, that would give more flexibility.
And so give our children, like I said, if they don't feel comfortable, they can always find somebody to just take over in 5 minutes, or if the parents in there or something, they can use their imagination. They'll have the ability to do that.
And I just want to reiterate, again, I'm kind of taking the approach that I want I prefer personally the broader policy, because it gives us the most flexibility to change the course of action if we need to do that. in this instance, I'm trusting the administration, at least initially, to say they think this is the best approach, and I support that. I also would support eating in the classroom. I think, again, because of the MOA and that, we should be exploring what's our contingency plan if we start under like we said we're going to do. But it doesn't work because if we're going to have this, we're going to have the same challenges with the MOA, and so we've got to start working that contingency plan now. But to me, at the end of the day, all of this, everything we're talking about, in my personal opinion, doesn't need to, where we're going to eat, whether they're going to take water breaks in the classroom, all of that to me doesn't need to be specified in the policy. In my opinion, to me, I think the flexibility is important because we may need to pivot. But we better be working all of the angles to understand where we're going to pivot to.
Agreed. All right, so we have a plan on that, that's great. Moving to number 7, communication and information.
Yeah, I mean, there are just things, Acushnet travel policy, the AYSA application for use of school facilities. We were featured on the New York Times front page, the online. We had our first COVID testing, which was pretty amazing that somebody picked that picture up from the local newspaper. We also had a story in the Mid-Standard Times about the testing, and Dr. Trivedi's communication has been added to that. Other than that, I don't really have anything.
Any questions on any of the points under communication and information? Okay, we have no executive session, so we are nearing the end here. I would like to just remind the public that our next regular school committee meeting will be, it's currently scheduled to be here in the cafeteria on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. Though we may have another school committee meeting called before then, but it will be publicly posted at least one day before, right? And then should we note that locations of school committee meetings may change, and so we've got to kind of continue to work out the kinks of safety and what the town is allowing in terms of capacity. So we may be here, or we may be
remote, because the town
again.
Adopted a policy right now to limit public into these meetings because of COVID. And especially in town right now where our numbers are going up, we may be looking to go back to, temporarily, go back to the Zoom format, and hopefully it would be live streamed for the public.
So just keep an eye out on the posted agendas for the location and format of future meetings. So with that, I would request a motion to adjourn, please. So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.